the real Clubhouse if we're talking when it comes on.
Hi, everybody. We're on the internet.
Is Twitch the internet?
I think
It's the
It
whole
used to be
internet.
the internet.
It's not now, though. It's internet adjacent.
It's the old internet.
Yeah.
Oh no! What are
Not
the
that
kids
newfangled
doing?
internet.
This is if the internet is a highway, it's like the super information highway. We're like
We're the frontage road?
We're like
Running along.
we're that road that runs alongside where sometimes you can go like 5 miles faster, but usually just no. Usually just not.
Well, but like that to me is always the preferred road.
Yeah, it is.
you
We are
can
the
go a
fire
little-
lane
As
of
long
the
as you
internet.
don't need to get anywhere, yes.
Hey, sometimes
guys.
Sepulveda is the best choice if you need to get somewhere. Sepulveda, if you need to get somewhere, like
I heard Hippolyta. I don't know where my brain is. I
Where?
was just like, what?
Hippolyta Boulevard.
Yeah.
We love it. We love it.
So we should probably say we have a guest today.
right here.
Matt Key,
Matt
thank you
Key.
for
Hey,
joining
of course.
us.
Hey, everybody. I'm glad I could finally be on your show. You've been asking for weeks.
And of course, as always, Amy Dallen, the internet's own Amy Dallen.
And Taliesin, I guess, is here.
Talison's also
and
here.
because I lost a game of Injustice 2, we are joined by Phil LaMarr.
That's right.
Yeah, it's
Welcome
penance.
to Phil.
Exactly. I now get half of everything of Taliesin.
This
All of
is
his
true.
Did you
shows.
get married?
Well, I mean, like it's Injustice married, which
Okay.
is a
Exactly.
special.
You've got at least another 6 years with this guy.
Exactly.
And hopefully at least one
That
more
tweet made me
recording
laugh
session.
so hard.
Yeah, no, we played yesterday. We played Injustice, and he won by.
Oh my God. It was like at the critical thing.
Who were you? Who'd you play?
We played ourselves.
We played ourselves.
Well, I don't. But
I was Aquaman, King of the Seven Seas.
And I was Flash. Apparently not quite the fastest man alive.
Oh.
Not the fastest man in the 7 seas for once. It didn't go well.
See, I'm telling you, the problem is the body type that they created for your Flash. He's a little bulky. He's a little
Trident.
bulky.
he is a little bulky.
That trident just kept. Yeah, I don't feel. I know that trident. Man.
I am the king of the 7 cheap moves.
It was.
Yay!
It was good. And then we played a little bit of
chip,
Hellboy
chip,
just for fun. But
Oh my God, that was
How's Hellboy? Is he a good character to play?
so great.
Yeah?
His horns come up and they're flaming and
What
the
is
flaming
going on?
crown.
the little flaming crown.
How is it possible that you are discussing playing as Hellboy in a fighting game
They-
with the DC heroes?
They put Hellboy into Injustice. You can play as Hellboy.
He's like a
now.
little
I've
boy.
heard it,
Look
but
at
the
him.
rest of my brain doesn't understand.
I know, isn't it funny?
Amazing.
There are no walls anymore, Amy. Everything is everything.
They announced that they're adding the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the next round.
I saw that.
Because
Which versions, though?
they
Is it going to be those like big, like buffed out ones from the movies?
I was told it's the ones from the movies, but like
they look very
Which
like
movies?
colorized
The
original. They give me like the original with but like they've got the colorization of the. There's a
Define
trailer
original.
out. You can see it.
I gotta look that up.
There's a trailer. There's a trailer.
there's a trailer for that.
I know we are not even getting. We have actually things to talk about
Yes,
before.
you have a show
so
to do.
We do. We have a box really quickly.
We have some extremely special object guests. What do we call them?
Promotional friend materials.
Promotional friend materials.
Friends have labored have been
Have
long
labored
laboring,
hard.
and now we are going to bequeath some of our friends' labors upon you.
We will be giving one of these away. But that's
later.
Hence-
They're so
hence the
pretty though.
bequeath.
That's at the end of the.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a
We'll talk
giveaway.
about. Hey, what's up, everybody? We're a game. We're going to be talking about that.
You should make a commercial that's just that.
Hey, what's up,
We are
everybody?
Geek and
We're
Sundry.
great.
That is how it works. I think.
Sundry.
That would be
We're
mostly
making
geek.
content.
And a little sundry.
Little Sundry.
That's a
Yeah, yeah.
little sundry.
And yeah, you've been rolling around for a while, and like I'm sure like and it's been fun having you on. And I know that you've got a thing that you're working on, so like we.
I want to hear about what you've been up to.
You've got a deal right
Yes,
now.
well, I've spent the last several weeks really focused on this animated show, Goblins, that I'm co-writing, co-producing, and doing a voice for.
Poor
and
man.
Yeah, it's me, Matt King, and our friend Terrell Hunt, who created the webcomic that it's based on. It's really cool. It's basically, Terrell describes it as Smurfs meets Game of Thrones. But it's like, a D&D story where the goblins, instead of being like the little, monsters you just slash through, they're the heroes. They're the adventuring party. So it's a goblin adventuring party and, that the world that they live in. And we're turning it into a cartoon because it's
That's
such a great
fantastic.
comic.
So cool. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
How did you get involved?
Matt King showed me the comic, and I started reading it, and it took me like all the way back to my D&D days. Back when I was wearing glasses and talking about comics with my friends. Oh.
You've come so far.
It's the second best
one
thing you
would
got
believe
going on.
it.
Yeah.
Just the same place. And then he and I looked at him, she's like, we have to do this. We have to get this to a wider audience. And so we asked Terrell, like, can we? And so we turned it, we wrote the first story arc, and we made it into 10 episodes. And then we're like, hey, let's do this. And then we looked and saw how much money it costs to make a cartoon.
It's expensive.
It's expensive.
I've tried to do it. It's very
Oh
expensive.
my God. And the comic itself and the story and the characters, it's funny and it's violent and it's, some of it is really like gets you in the gut. And we're like, if we take this straight to, big studio people, they're gonna go, oh, it's like Gummy Bears, right? And they're like, we're gonna lose all this stuff. So we're gonna make a 5-minute trailer to show people like really what it is, that it's like gutsy and funny and, keep all the D&D inside jokes. And then hopefully we can get the money to make a full thing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Oh my gosh. And I didn't tell you, do you know who we've got on it? Like doing voices for all the goblins?
I actually don't because I've been living in a hole.
I called a bunch of friends, and the cast includes Billy West, Maurice LaMarche,
Never heard of these guys.
Jim Cummings,
Who's that?
Steve Bloom, Tara Strong, Jennifer Hale, and Matthew Mercer. You guys might know.
Never heard of that guy.
He's available. That's cool.
And yeah, he's got so much time on his hands.
I'm
And
sorry
there
you
are-
couldn't get anybody for this cartoon.
Oh, that's not everybody. There's a few more people that we haven't announced yet.
Surprises.
So yes, as we reach levels on our Indiegogo, then we're gonna put out some surprises.
No.
Oh my God, where can people go to find out more about that?
At our Goblins Indiegogo page, or you can go straight to goblinsanimated.com, and that'll take you to the Indiegogo page.
Well, that's amazing.
Goblins. Everybody knows how to spell that, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I don't, but I can't spell my own name.
It's with a J, right?
Well, your name is really hard.
Yeah, that's just.
RBL.
I was cursed with Welsh. Yeah, it's terrible.
I think it's with a J. J-O?
Jorblins.
Jorblins.
Gob-
Is
Gerbils.
this why all of your job hunting always went terribly wrong? Is
That's
'cause
right, he
you
kept
were
looking for a gob.
For a gob.
I'm looking for a gob.
Oh, is there a goblin here?
Oh man.
I believe it's pronounced job, sir.
Next.
Next.
Everlasting job stopper. Yeah.
That's what they used to call him.
I didn't know you knew me that long.
Oh man. So okay, so we are actually. That's right. We're here to do a comic book show. I keep forgetting.
I know.
This is
we
the whole
talked about
notion.
games,
We talked about cartoons.
Well, I love this because what you're doing is literally trying. You found took a comic and you're trying to get more eyeballs on it, which obviously
Exactly.
is kind of what we live for.
Yeah,
And
right.
I like. We can all do our separate brags here, but we realized that Phil is one of all of our separate favorite people independently, and I know you because
Completely
comics.
different friends groups. Like we all
it's
come
so
from
funny.
completely different
You're
directions.
like the center of our Venn diagram.
Well, and then I go out occasionally, and one time I ran into you randomly
know.
having lunch with Chloe. I'm like, what the? How do
do
you
you
two
know
know each
that-
other? How do you know everyone?
But and I love to do this just anytime we have new people on here. But even though I have sold comics to you many times, I do not know the answer to some of these questions. How do you get into comics?
Ooh, you're so good at this.
That's really interesting. Well, I'm a reader. I've been a reader since I could read, which, I started reading really early because I'm an only child and there was nothing else to do. But my reading led me to comics. But at first I was just sort of buying comics in, the market or whatever. And then when I was around 10, my next door neighbor came back from college and just handed over his collection.
Oh my goodness.
And I was just like, oh, what's it? And so now I'm reading stuff that's, a good 10, 12 years before anything I ever would have seen. I had 20-cent comics. I actually had some Mad magazines that were older than I was. So
All
I'm
making pop culture jokes you can't possibly understand.
Right.
I love that about Mad.
And it's amazing because I'm like, okay. And it gave me this weird breadth of knowledge of comics, because everybody else I knew just sort of read a comic every occasion, But then all of a sudden I'm like, no. There was this one episode with, one issue of Detective Comics with a Carmine Infantino cover, but it was not the, extreme Carmine Infantino. And I'm like, people are like, what are you talking about?
What?
I love
Which
a good,
member of the
I
Bat
love a good
family is Carmine
box
Infantino?
bequeathing. Box bequeathings are the best things. Like those moments. There's a lot of comic fans have that moment where someone just dropped a short box on their lap and they're like, what are all these treasures? I'm going to read
what you've
every
given
X
them-
Factor ever.
Right?
What you've given them is a world, essentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you started clearly to put the pieces together to connect that there was a history here, like, and to start
Right.
sort of reading into the context of it, like, way earlier than most people, I think, actually become aware that anyone's even writing and drawing these things.
Exactly. Yeah, I still think of like Roy Thomas as like, he was the god. Well, actually, he's the demigod. He was the one who started on Earth and ascended to Olympus.
Yeah.
You know, before anybody else. Yeah.
Those of you who may remember from some of our previous episodes,
Enoch.
we talked about the first
There we go.
generation of creators to go from sort of fan to creator. And Roy Thomas is a flagship member of that generation with Len Wein and Mark Wolfman.
I was about to say
Right,
very much like
right.
Lin Wein, yeah. Like the guys who are like doing the zines and everything, and like, this is what they're doing wrong, and if I were a comic book writer, this is how I would do
The
it.
minute
And
you
then,
start getting the self-referential thing, where like the original artists who created are now like generating their like the new content to themselves. It's that weird, pushback that you
Well,
get.
but there's
Film
also
buffs making films.
Also with comics, I think, as opposed to like, you know, because you see that same thing with The Simpsons, like, well, people who grew up in The Simpsons and then it was not the same. It's like watching a mimeograph of a mimeograph. But with comics, there was this sweet spot because originally, the original people were like, well, I could be doing home and garden, or I guess I'll do this Marvel thing.
Yeah.
Going down to Timely, they've got a job open, you know? And they didn't.
Will draw for food.
Right. They
Yeah.
didn't read them. They didn't care.
Yeah.
But then you've got the people who grew up with them who then, you know, become experts at it. But then there's you could go too far in the other direction, like, I care too much.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay, now you guys are just printing fan fiction.
I get into that conversation a lot with people. What's the difference between like writing fan fiction and writing like a comic book character? What's the difference between something that is fan fiction and something that's actually like canonical? And then those moments in canonical writing that feel like fan fiction and the things that make it feel like it's serving someone's love of the character as opposed to the character itself.
Right,
And
right.
that's one of those weird. That's one of my favorite like strange normal like my like late night Wednesdays with like Jeffrey Thorne and that group of people of like the where is that line? That's such a weird and fascinating thing to hit
Yeah.
where you're like, you care a little too much about this character and you're not willing to hurt them to make the story good.
Right.
You're working too hard to fulfill some sort of need of your own. And
which is why I could never write a Doctor Strange comic.
Right. Because you're too close to it.
Yeah, I could. I would be the worst writer for a Doctor Strange
just
comic
be panel
because
after panel of you hugging him.
yeah, it would be panel after panel of Doctor Strange being like, here's why I'm the best, and then me proving that he's the best.
Combing his hair.
And then, like,
Like-
I'm all of a sudden Wong, and I'm like, come here, Dr. Steven. I'll comb your hair. Do you want chicken? I'll go make you chicken.
And
Wow,
then
this is the worst issue ever.
This guy really likes Dr. Strange. This is not interesting at all.
But you're, you know,
Well, I love the other end of that is like Grant Morrison's Animal Man, where he literally wrote himself into the book just to be like, my job is to torture you practically to death, and that's kind of what I'm doing. Sorry.
sorry.
It is interesting though because because comics, especially the big two universes, have this not quite but nearly unique sort of like baton passing continued history structure. You got the guys like Roy Thomas and the first generation to sort of answer the question of, okay, how do we continue these things that have had this meaning? And you know, to continue it without interrupting is where we get the word continuity, right?
Right.
The idea that rather than like Gundam style, just being like more robots, loosely written, the old robots,
Reboot.
forget about them.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
this idea of carrying it forward, it goes on to essentially to today's topic, to new generations to come in, pick up the reins and say, okay, what will it mean for this period of time for someone to pick up that baton and carry it? Right. And in certain moments, you can, like, we all love to read into everybody's choices. You get certain things where it's like, okay, so if you're Brian Michael Bendis, you've been doing some
watching it
indies,
happen.
you've been grown up loving comics, went to art school, worked at smaller companies for a while, and somebody gives you the keys eventually to Marvel Comics.
Right.
Now, there is an argument to be made that you immediately act out your fan fiction impulses by resuscitating Jessica Drew, who you think is awesome and nobody else remembers, and just sort of obsessively making her important for 10 years.
Some of my and Jess, if you're watching, we apologize. One of my favorite little factoids I got about since we were finally talking about. I would love.
Yeah. So today's topic is Brian Michael Bendis.
That was such a good segue.
That was
really
a great
enjoying it.
segue.
You did it.
I was watching it happen. Like we don't normally do topical shows. We're not really necessarily a top. We don't feel like that. We feel like plenty of people do that. But this is interesting because all of your friends who are super, super into what's happening right now are probably losing their minds.
So, for instance, you
better
saw
or
us
worse.
last week, and we all heard Bendis is moving to DC.
And we were like
Look at him, he's attacking. Ah!
and
He's a giant.
we practically broke out into a musical number at it, like Bendis is moving. Yeah, and it's one of those interesting moments where there's this huge shift that's about to happen on a fundamental level in comics. But like, I figure it's kind of our job, if we have a moment, instead of just talking about what this is going to mean, because who knows what this is going to mean,
Wild speculation.
to say, yeah, and wild speculation is all fun and well, but that's not really what we do here. There's plenty of other people who do it better.
But we're still going to speculate, right?
Just not wildly.
Yeah, like tamely
Wait,
speculate.
can I do it? I want to do it. Maybe we would. Maybe we will speculate.
Maybe we will.
I will be speculating wildly. These two
without-
maintain.
without-
We'll be
Still a wild
speculating whether or
card.
not we'll be speculating.
What's Phil looking at? What does Phil get to do? Does he get to wildly, tamely, or some other form of speculation?
I'm not going to
Narrate,
speculate
baby.
at all. I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
Because I am Bendis. Right, exactly. What a twist.
But yeah, we thought it'd be fun to tell you who this guy is and why he's interesting and why he's had such a the profound effect that he's had on comics and a truly staggering career for someone who is not yet retired. He has a lot under his belt, and he's got a very unique style that's all his own. He's got a lot going for him, and he's done some very interesting things to. Specifically to the Marvel Universe, and is responsible for the tone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
In a lot of ways, yeah, absolutely.
His effect on world pop culture is profound, which is a strange thing to say.
And if he had done nothing in his life except co-create Jessica Jones, he would still be one of my favorite creators to ever
Yeah.
exist. And as it turns out, that is just the kernel of so much more.
So we were talking about fandom, and there was an interesting little snippet that I found, which is apparently, and I didn't source this as well as I normally do because I have been chicken with head cut off because of convention. In high school, he apparently submitted a novelization of X-Men and the Starjammers by Chris Claremont, and got an A+ for a creative writing assignment.
So he wrote fanfic.
He was a fanfic writer in high school.
Well, I hope it was fanfic and not just
A
because it says novelization. That means
novelization.
I just added words to the story that was already there.
No. I mean,
Plagiarism.
novelization is I've read novelizations of comic book stories that have actually, in my opinion, have actually occasionally surpassed the original material in interesting ways.
Yes, but what did High School Bendis claim he was doing? I think that's
getting an A+.
Right.
Oh, yep. Well done. Well done.
For imagination and inventiveness.
Right?
I think this is him editing his own Wikipedia page, but that's just my theory.
Oh my God, let's go into that edit history and just find
Right,
who
right.
did
See
who
what that
added.
Speaking of editing his own Wikipedia page, one of our fans edited, I think, the Marvel Wiki.
No.
Oh,
to
no.
What happened?
To say
did
that-
he do?
Last
Did they
week,
do it?
Uh-huh.
Oh no!
I forgot to write it down.
It died quick, I'm pretty sure.
Last week we made the joke that we couldn't remember Thor. So you know how Thor has the two giant flying
Goats.
battle goats?
Yes, right.
We remembered one of them was named Tooth Gnasher, but we could not remember the other one's name. So we jokingly said we thought it was Tom Bombadil.
Yeah.
And then someone went and changed the
We may have
what-
told them
no.
to do that.
we may have advocated the change, but they did it.
We were joking.
All right, Henry.
So now,
Henry the
Do
Fourth.
that.
So now Thor's
did
goats
well.
are officially Tooth Gnasher and Tom
Tom
Bombadil.
Bombadil.
Officially.
Yep.
Do not vandalize official resources.
It's on the internet.
It's on the internet. It's true.
I appreciate you, Internet. I appreciate everything you do.
And that's the 405 version of the internet. That's not the Sepulveda.
Right,
internet.
exactly.
Oh,
The
yeah.
main line.
That's practically the carpool lane. I mean,
right.
That's HOV internet. That
they
is,
need
you
a
are.
sticker for that. So yeah, Bendis. I mean, he was always interested in writing comic books, but he after attempting for many years to get into it, he figured it was just sort of probably a waste of time and went off and did many other things before eventually landing at a couple comic book companies and started doing a little bit of his crime comics.
Right. Well, don't forget he was also an artist.
Yes.
At the beginning.
Yeah, I had failed to really take into account until because I hadn't read much of his pre-Marvel stuff. I'd read a little bit of Powers, which is sort of contemporary with Marvel, but
right.
I'm
Never-ending Powers.
most of the way through Jinx.
Nice.
Oh, look at that
is
beautiful
great.
cover.
Which is just fantastic. And I hadn't realized that sort of, I knew he came from the same kind of, to me, the same generation as Hickman and Brubaker, and I'd forgotten that all three of them started out doing their own illustrating. Like, it's, but like
Wait, this is
Bendis did for a
Bendis'
while.
own illustrations?
Yeah.
Bendis drew this.
And it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It is Jinx, and I think we've got
I
some
didn't know
Jinx
that.
in the, yeah, I mean, like, the book is 1970s New York sleaze noir, black and white, heavy ink.
But with a female badass protagonist.
Oh yeah, she's
Which
a
is
proto
going to be a
Jessica
recurring
Jones.
theme throughout this episode, and one
Right.
of the reasons that I'm excited about Bendis.
She's absolutely a proto Jessica Jones in my opinion.
Well, and
Yeah.
what's really interesting to me, like being there when this came out, this character was not normal. Like you read this book, and this character didn't exist on TV.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
no.
character didn't exist in movies. It wasn't around. He has remade pop culture in his image.
Yeah.
Or the images that he used to draw, at least.
I have a special sort of shrine in my heart. Having spent this many years behind the counter at a comic book store, I have a special shrine in my heart for a handful of creators whom I have heard a customer sort of roll their eyes at for always writing about women. They're a small but treasured group in my heart, and Bendis is on that list. And Rucka is on that list.
Right.
They are two sort of chief offenders, not necessarily with what they meant to be hostility, but where people are like, oh, I bet it's a badass lady detective. And I'm just like, ah.
Right.
You can just float over and hand them goldfish and be like, there you go.
There you go.
They have other books to read.
They have
there
other-
are plenty of books out there. for them that are
Literally,
not
Goldfish
featuring these
is the boy
characters.
version of Jinx. You can read Goldfish, which is the boy version of Jinx. There you
But
are.
I want Bendis to write the boy version of Jinx.
Again.
He did. He wrote Goldfish. And actually, I think, does Goldfish show up in Jinx, or does Jinx
Yes.
show up in Goldfish? Or is it? 'cause
Or-
they kind of dated at one point.
The worlds definitely cross over. I can't remember
Seems like
whose
Goldfish
book.
Yeah, the
came
Bendis
first
crime verse.
from reading the little. I
All in
skipped to some of the
Cleveland.
end notes.
So like, I mean, like, there's no way to really like. There's the Goldfish graphic novel. God, it's so pretty. So there's no way like to kind of push these things at you. It's very much the Quentin Tarantino of comics. The
Yeah.
dialogue is super snappy. It covers most of the page. Like there are pages that are just walls of text. It can be a little, I find, and especially when I handed a Torso to my mother to read. Very, very much up her alley. But she had a very difficult time with some of the scanning, just because a lot of his dialogue bubbles, they interconnect a lot. There's like lots
Oh,
of
the
hanging,
bip,
and then they
bop,
stagger
right.
each other. Yeah, they do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
It's so pervasive in his writing that literally when I was doing image searches, I could tell pages that were written by him from like low res
Yeah.
pics. I'm like,
Interesting.
oh, that's Bendis dialogue. Click. And like, it's so obvious.
He has a fascination, which he's described a lot, with naturalistic dialogue and trying to
Speaking tempo.
introduce some of that into comics. That he's inspired by folks like David Mamet and Aaron Sorkin.
Very much.
And the truth is that
so
real
Sorkin.
human speech, we do a lot of it, and we stop and start and we stutter, and you can't import it purely to comics. But like he pushed things a lot closer in that direction, and that's what has pushed and what interests him.
What's the Orson Welles? It's grammatical, but it's unrewarding. Say, get it together, guys.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I noticed when I was reading through Powers over the weekend,
Which we
On
will
my-
get to. But yeah.
on my first anniversary trip.
Congratulations!
I've been married for a year.
Was it your first anniversary?
First anniversary. I've been married a
oh,
year.
It was their
What?
first trip.
I was
Being
about
married.
to say.
To whom?
My lovely wife, Brittany.
There we go.
There it is.
We have a
Don't-
lovely
Don't
wife.
Hillary swank this, man. Do not swank this.
Suddenly, somewhere
has
in the
ever been in
world,
less
about
danger
about
of Hillary
150
swanking it.
people
We
took
can't do
their
a show
first
without
shot.
Took a
one.
shot,
Like,
yeah.
It just isn't a show without lovely wife Brittany.
Lovely wife Brittany
Who
is.
is actually the best, but
Yeah, she's legitimately
She's
the best. But
she's
over
pretty
the-
cool.
Over the weekend, I read a lot of Powers, and that's one of the things
What's
that I noticed. Powers is a 2005, 2006?
started in the early
it's earlier.
2000s.
I
Is that
have-
earlier?
I have a number for that. I I haven't.
Did you make a timeline? I have to. Okay, is there like a good software where I can make like little trees and timelines? Because I need them a lot.
I would love
will
that.
ask my little brother who would know this.
Is that
because-
Tibet?
No, Alex.
Oh,
would know
right.
Because he's the computer science major,
And the one with the normal
specifically goes in. That's a story I can't tell on the air. But yeah, the one, literally the one with the normal.
The
name.
one with the normal name. Yeah.
Let's see.
Guys, by the way,
2000.
2000.
Oh no!
it's still there.
Oh.
And Tom
Okay,
Bombadil.
now I feel bad.
Is no one checking?
This is not like this
Our
is like a
institutions are crumbling.
crumbling.
Oh my God.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is why you have to be. This is why you're supposed to double check everything you find on Wikipedia.
Thank you.
You can double check with us any of the comic book stuff that you find on Wikipedia.
Which is why I've prefaced a lot of this with I didn't get to double source all of this. Normally
thank
pop
you,
culture
Chief.
stuff. Thank you, Chief.
So
that
if-
was so depressing.
If you bring up
Thank you.
anything that
Thank you.
says that Bendis was the host of a Canadian children's show in the early 70s, I'm going to tell you that's wrong.
I remember him on You Can't Do That on Television. You can't take that away from me. There was a little Charlie Brown bald kid, and
Mandela effect.
So Powers, early 2000s is
Oh, did you actually get the year? Or did I?
2000.
Okay, thank you.
2000.
2000. Wow, that is a way long time ago.
Yep, I found it on the. That's what my timeline says.
Powers is that was Icon. Is that an imprint of Marvel?
So it's
No, it started out
Yeah.
on Image.
yeah.
Image moved to Icon.
moved to Icon.
Once
okay.
he was fully in at Marvel, they started a creator online. I think in part for this
For him.
book.
Probably
like,
so,
For
yeah, it
books like
makes
this, so
sense.
that people working over there would have a like wing to put this stuff in.
Yeah.
And it has mostly dissolved now, but for a while there, we'll get into that. What's Powers?
Powers is a comic about God, what's his name? Christian Walker. Yeah.
Christian Walker.
And his new partner, Detective Dina Pilgrim.
Badass lady detective.
Badass lady detective, recurring theme. No, I wish it wasn't.
Coined the term stank butt. Stank butt.
Stank butt.
She had stank
She
butt.
got
Is
stank
that a
butt.
thing? Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do I have it? If you don't know it's a thing, yeah, you probably have.
Probably have it. Yeah, there they are.
Yeah.
But essentially, like you take like a Marvel or a DC universe, it's a world filled with superheroes, and this is the story of the normal people who deal with that. And Detective
What
Pilgrim.
is he a normal person? Christian Walker.
You can't say that yet.
No,
That-
I mean like
are we? How much are we?
5 pages into the book they did deal with this. You might as well.
No, he's well, but that's what's really fascinating to me about Powers.
It's
is
been
like,
17 years.
I can't remember this concept ever showing up in comics before. The ex superhero. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The superhero. He was a superhero.
Right. It's like ex-marine becomes a cop.
Yeah.
Ex-superhero becomes a cop.
Bendis was the only kid who saw that cover of Spider-Man leaving his costume in a garbage can and went, "So what's next?" Like everyone
Yeah.
else was like, "Put it back on for the love
Put it
of
back on. Put it
God."
back on. He's like, well, I bet he goes and becomes a detective.
Well, I mean,
There
like,
you
and
go.
it's somebody who's so steeped in detective noir and like Raymond Chandler and stuff like that. I mean, you can't help but like the idea of very much in that noir. The whole notion of noir is a lot of times taking people who are above reproach and just smashing them into the dirt. And what like there's nowhere higher to be than, and like they really cover that, is there's nowhere higher to be than like a superhero who's now you're a beat cop.
Yeah.
It's all over.
Yeah, he's
And
a
it's
homicide detective who deals mostly with the capes.
because they
Yeah.
all remember, they all know who he is.
And like they in the book, which I think is really clever, they treat superheroes as like celebrities. Like they are the Hollywood elite of that particular reality. And there's an entire, almost an entire issue where it's like a tabloid.
Right.
Like it was in volume 3 that I saw that one where it's a tabloid and they're dealing with all the celebrities up
yes,
there.
who
and-
and-
Power scandals.
Power scandals and what'd they wear to the ball and like all that stuff. And then the next issue, like a superhero named Olympia dies, and he's sort of like a Thor/Superman character. And
Yeah.
It
yeah,
all goes terribly, terribly wrong.
yeah. It's so
There was
good.
also
yeah.
briefly a television series based off of this.
There was
Yes.
on
PlayStation.
PlayStation Network.
PlayStation. Yeah.
There is some debate on how successful it was in translating this to screen.
Mm-hmm.
You may love it, you may not. I don't think it got the tempo quite right, which always.
I haven't seen
But we
it.
had when we had a couple friends from our tangential friends group who showed up in the show, so I was like
Nice.
definitely like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
believe it was an
and,
example like Bendis was involved with the
Chick was
show, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah.
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 So an interesting example of sort of this, like, in our current superhero golden age, one of those cases where somebody actually found an original work not tied to one of these and like worked on developing and adapting it with the creator involved,
Right.
Which makes an interesting case. I'm
It
not
does.
sure. I'm not sure how their like discovery process worked out. If it got shut down because they just stopped doing originals on PlayStation, or
And like it's one of those things, and I'm always fascinated. I love as a voice actor, I will sit and read Bendis out loud with friends. Literally, when I was stuck in Texas, and a couple friends like working in Texas,
Like you do.
like you do.
I just like that there's no other version for Texas.
Right.
Like my mom and dad watching from Texas right now are like stuck in Texas.
I loved my year out there, but it was definitely I didn't befriend a
giving
lot
you a
of people
hard
outside
time.
of work.
Of it.
I'm giving you a hard
We're not
time
of it.
because I'm from Texas and my family is watching.
Kids out there, we definitely even a few of us actually recorded a couple chunks of Powers for ourselves because
No
we're
way.
like, because it's so rewarding to
Well,
read.
that was one of the things about Powers that really struck me. Was like, it felt like he had, I'm sure like he had editors helping him out, but it didn't feel like he had editors reining him in. Where like the Marvel stuff, like yeah, they would let him do his dialogue, but like on Powers, like you would have 3 or 4 word bubbles that were just the same word repeating. Where he'd be like, I'm trying to think of that word, like, and that's a
Right.
very normal speech pattern. But in Powers, he was allowed to just. Here it is. Like this person stutters when they talk, and you're going to read every word of it. Like
In the order that I want you to.
yeah.
and but it's a very natural way of speaking, and
Well,
like
and-
that's like you're saying, a
And-
very rewarding
And
read.
when you get into any dialogue that has like grandeur and cadence to it, I mean, like it's like a show like Deadwood is a good example of that. Where I mean, it's practically like there are chunks of it that are in like ionic pentameter. Like you're just there's chunks of Bendis where you just have to understand how the language operates, and like your brain can like do the work, but like once you start trying to put it out there, there's just it's. As Well says, it's very rewarding as an actor to like get some of this off the page, and it feels there's a lot to play with. It's like doing Tolkien. It just feels big,
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
fun, and really there's so much to play with.
Exactly.
So there was this guy, and he was like an indie cartoonist, and
Yeah.
he had some books under his belt and had gotten some attention for some of his crime stories, and he seemed to excel at sort of musicality of language and especially crime and noir themes.
Right.
So I can understand how they were like, we're starting up the Marvel Knights,
Well-
and we need somebody to take over Daredevil.
Well,
I
it
see
was-
how that happened, but how did you get from there to here?
The
read
architect of it.
Spider-Man?
Right.
Image was the big push because McFarlane wanted someone to take over Sam and Twitch, and Sam
Who
and
was Sam and
Twitch.
Twitch?
Sam and Twitch.
Now you're making people hungry.
I know. I would
Sam
really.
and
Twitch.
Sandwich.
Sam and Twitch were 2 hard-boiled cops from the Spawn universe, which was if you have seen our Image episode, which was the Todd McFarlane demonic sort of
mercenary, right?
Yeah, demonic mercenary in the city.
Faustian mercenary who weirdly poses like Spider-Man character of his
Why was
creator.
chains up in the air?
Because
not
Flaunt
less.
it. And Sam and Twitch were 2 kind of hard-boiled cops that existed in that new universe, and I get the feeling that Todd kind of saw that this was a guy who could write hard-boiled and write it really well, and just sort of dragged him into his little world to work on that book, and eventually leading to Marvel having this moment. And was this the first thing he did? On like page 5 of Marvel.
There's a lot. Like
I
it's
looked
impossible
up
to
and
not
there
have
are
pages of notes on
22
this.
pages of Bendis story results on the Grand Comics database.
Gosh.
Just published in America.
I'm trying
not
to figure out if
counting
Ultimate
translations.
or Alias happened first.
I believe Ultimate,
was first. Yeah.
but I don't know whether his Daredevil run or Ultimate Spider-Man. Which
Daredevil
one?
was before.
Okay.
What was it?
Yeah.
I'm looking that
Because
up right now.
the link I think is David Mack.
Okay, Ultimate's 2000.
Ultimate Spider-Man?
Ultimate Spider-Man's 2000.
Right. And
And then Daredevil is also 2000.
oh, interesting.
Daredevil Ninja, 3-issue limited series with Rob Haynes, October, December 2000.
But he also so the way it's told in some of his bio materials also is that David Mack, who's a wonderful artist we've talked about a little bit on here, had worked with him over at Caliber Comics before he went to Image.
Which is where all the noir stuff kind of happened.
And just so you know, Marvel went bankrupt in the late 90s. There were some
Literally selling office
exciting,
furniture.
crazy times over there. They had kind of attempted a mass universe reboot, and it sort of didn't go well.
went
And
very
like,
poorly.
there was kind of
That was Onslaught, right?
it was Heroes Reborn.
Yeah.
But like
in the
that
wake
followed
of
on,
Onslaught,
like
but
Onslaught killed it. Heroes Reborn brought it back.
But Heroes Reborn was like a Franklin thing. Onslaught was an X-Men thing.
But Onslaught pulled in all of the heroes, right? Am I wrong?
Is this 90s or is that later?
That was mid
Onslaught's
to
the
late
late
90s,
90s.
yeah.
And Heroes Reborn is like 96, 97, I think. So
Yeah.
maybe those were.
That's where you get the
that was the
Kurt
back and forth.
Busiek Avengers and
Which worked
right?
well a little bit after that. So
Man, we're going to do a Thunderbolts one day. Yeah, carry on.
we'll do a back half of the 90s episode at some point because we're still putting this together. But one
Yeah.
thing that they did in like,
Mullet
it
time.
must have been 99-ish, was they launched a subline called Marvel Knights, which was Joe Quesada
Right.
and Jimmy Palmiotti. And those two, scooping up talented folks, scooped up artist David Mack, who basically said, I have a buddy, he's got a great ear, and from at least the account I read online, sort of dropped Bendis' name in for the Daredevil gig.
And Daredevil was a character that hadn't, like, he had thrived under certain writers really, really well, but had not, he's a hard character to write. Daredevil is a hard character to really get down. He's
Well, especially
complicated.
in a superhero universe.
yeah.
It's like, he can't fly, but he's blind.
What?
Yeah, and he's a nuanced character. He's always been a little difficult. There's ever since especially once they admired him and all his Catholic guilt and like the nun mom and
I
like all
think
the weird.
I think like Daredevil's an interesting character in that like if you have the right writer writing for that character, it's one of the best things Marvel has. If you have just like
But see, nobody thought that before Miller.
yeah, exactly. So like Miller comes along, redefines this
the
character,
late
finds
70s,
all the
early 80s.
awesome things that you can do with this character,
Right.
and does it. But then like, you know, you kind of don't really have any memorable runs on Daredevil until Bendis comes along and is like,
Well,
hey,
you
remember
do
this
right
amazing?
before Bendis, and help me with the chronology if I'm off here, but I believe part of why
You're
we're talking
gonna
about
be more
David
right than
Mack,
I am.
I was the kid who was like, Kevin Smith was writing Daredevil?
I felt
Oh,
like
that's right, he did.
Because this is not a spoiler. I don't feel like at this point because he killed Karen Page.
Right.
Yeah, everyone loves Karen Page. I'm so glad they haven't killed her in the Netflix series because
I was terrified.
I was like,
immediately. even though
every
I read this
moment-
run and loved it and thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Every moment she's on screen, I'm having a mild heart attack because they just offed her so that was a mean death.
Well,
Yeah.
it was also sort of a mercy killing. By the
It
time.
was
By-
such a rough.
What they did with her.
dragged so.
She's lived a
I mean, can you
rough life.
imagine well, I guess prior to Identity Crisis, can you imagine a DC character being treated like that? But
Dude, I love how we have to go back. Like, can you imagine? Well, they did that in
Yeah, never mind. No, they.
oh
they
yeah,
actually
raped and
did-
set on fire. Right.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah.
But Karen, oh God, Karen Page though. Karen Page was great because then Bendis was given such a great opportunity that he ran with, which I love, which is, and they kind of get into this, is a superhero having a nervous breakdown.
yeah.
Is like it's like how many years of Daredevil is it? It's like 6 books.
Oh man, it's so
of
many.
Daredevil
you
having a nervous breakdown.
There's like it kicked off the weird little Daredevil second golden age, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was like the Kevin Smith stuff, the David Mack art, the Echo run that I love
Oh
to death.
God, the Echo run, and I love the Daredevil Anonymous story arc. Do you remember the Daredevil Anonymous story arc? It was a series of stories, and it was after he had been outed in the press, which is something that happens in the book.
okay, right.
And they're in a basement, and it's 12 people like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting.
Right.
And they all are sharing Daredevil stories
Oh,
because they're
that's
all.
that's Bendis, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Bendis.
Yeah, that's Bendis. Yeah.
Bendis. And it's just 12 little micro stories of people who had either very positive or extremely negative experiences with Daredevil. And it's each issue is like one person going down the line in this basement in a church basement. It's so. God only knows you can find it. There's a
Now,
Daredevil image.
He ends up handing it off to Brubaker, who does immediately another
Another
blockbuster
amazing
several
run,
year,
right.
mythos-changing run on the character.
A series of
But
amazing runs.
This period of time and this sort of revitalization of those characters under initially the Marvel Knights banner, and then a new banner that they would make up, essentially what we are reaping now in the Netflix shows are the seeds sown by these guys in this period of time.
Well, and it's funny because you look at that perspective, like, you know, it's what happens in this world of superheroes. It's not just, you know, like in the old days, like Superman just flew over and they were at the top of people's hats.
Yeah.
Like, you never worried about the people under the hats.
Yeah, it was all about Superman.
Bendis always tells the story of the people under the
No,
hats.
he really likes the people. He likes the noir characters, and like he has a really good eye for figuring out who's noir, which is also why I have a theory about one of the characters he's going to revitalize for DC.
But like that's one of the things
creeper.
that I loved about. That's one of the things I loved about Daredevil is that he brought in like Stiltman. Like he's a joke, but like, and he still has fun with him, but like he has him come in and.
Was it the Jester that he made really creepy?
Oh, I think
The
so.
demonically possessed Jester was like
think
really,
so.
and then like he brought back
There was.
what's her name?
Oh, Typhoid Mary.
Typhoid
Yeah.
Mary.
I love that you're like this, and it's like, oh,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
we all know,
And
we're like,
like-
oh,
and
Daredevil,
like,
Typhoid Mary. Yeah.
Managed to take one of those costumes that's kind of like that's what? There's a lot of fishnet there, but like actually
justify
somehow
it.
turn it into like, holy fuck, you're punk. Like
Yeah.
I really like his version of that version of Typhoid Mary is one of my favorite versions of that character. I'm still sad she hasn't shown up in Daredevil, the TV series.
Well, is Bendis Daredevil free right now on Comixology? Our
lot
monitor's
of it.
really small, so I
A
can't
bunch
tell.
of it
Yeah,
is
I
currently
think
free
so.
on Comixology. It is, by the way,
Excellent.
if you are looking for a jumping on point for the Marvel Universe, especially if you're a Netflix fan, Bendis, all you have to know is Karen Page is dead. That's all you've got to know. And then Bendis begins surrounding Daredevil with what will eventually become Netflix, which is like immediately after Daredevil, Marvel Max happens.
Right.
Okay, so what are we talking about first, Max or Ultimate?
I think we have to talk Max first. I think
Yes,
Ultimate is
yeah.
almost is such an aside at this
Well,
point.
yeah, and also because I think Max sort of lived in that time, you know, and because to me, those first books of Alias were just like,
Captain Marvel, Luke Cage, Daredevil,
Right.
and Jessica Jones are the soil which eventually gives us everything that has happened over the last 17 years in Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
Starts at Daredevil. Daredevil, it's Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones give
Hell's
birth, to,
Kitchen.
give birth to Secret War, and we will get to Secret, and then Secret War is literally everything since.
So you just heard Phil say Alias, and what he's talking about, of
Alias,
course,
thank you.
is the book that we know as Alias, but which is starring and introducing out of thin air
Literally. Never before seen.
one of my favorite characters of all time. This book happened almost exactly at the same time that a television show called Alias came out.
right, Jennifer Garner, Jessica
yeah.
Jones, right, they both have the J names.
Yeah, it created a lot of
Alias, the TV
confusion.
show was fine. It was great.
Also did important things and had some
did,
creators
but-
who went on to do some stuff.
Some stuff.
A couple of my friends very well employed, and I'm grateful for it.
But it is funny, like he created this character who had a history.
Yes.
She was a new character, but he embedded her historically in the Marvel Universe.
Brilliant Spider-Man.
And she was
Yeah.
an ex-superhero.
Yeah.
Yep. A
Called
retired
Jewel.
superhero.
Right.
But like, wasn't the story? It was like she was in high school with Peter
She
Parker
went
and had
to
a
high
crush
school
on
with
him.
Peter Parker and had a secret crush on Peter Parker.
They eventually add that in. It's
like,
the most adorable.
It makes me so sad, it's so painful. She is like, whereas he is like cute awkward teen, she is not cute awkward teen. She is just awkward teen.
Yeah.
She is
Just awkward,
just like
loser
phantom
kid,
braces
yeah.
and headgear. Like you can feel it emanating off of her.
The thing
Yeah.
that I love about it, and that connects directly to it, okay, the thing I love about it is nearly everything.
Everything.
But one of
What a
the things I
beautiful
love
book.
about Jessica Jones, and my big takeaway, like from that season of TV, I was incredibly happy with. And what I would sort of, if people ask like how I liked it as an adaptation, my thing would always be that it's not the same as the book, but they lifted her and they put her pretty much intact in that show.
Right.
She comes through, and part of that is that like she isn't always likable. She
No.
doesn't always make the choices that you want her to make.
No.
And it's like especially, and I guess we should give the context here. this thing has an explicit content tag on it. That
And
was
it earns
not
it.
a thing that Marvel did.
Marvel had never,
Yeah.
and like they have a big sign on issue 1. I have issue 1 right here, and it says parental advisory not for kids in really
That's
big.
the new
that's the new
Jessica,
one.
but
Oh,
yes.
that's the new. Oh, I pulled up the wrong issue. I'm an idiot. Let me pull it right back.
You're not an idiot. You just pulled up the wrong issue.
No, I have to.
But it
give
was
Roy
kind of a
my-
big deal because Marvel hadn't been dabbling with stuff quite that adult.
Not
You
at
know,
all.
like-
Well,
like-
not since the late 70s when they had Epic.
Yeah.
The Epic
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
But that was that was magazine size. It was not
Yeah.
to be confused with their comic books. This was the same size. This was in the superhero
It
universe.
was in main continuity,
and
yeah.
They was doing it.
And it is funny because there are things in this book that, like, my copy, this kind of, I love it, especially, like, they sort of settle down after a little bit into the, like, okay, we can find our reasonable level. Like, they open
Like an
with the,
HBO
like,
show.
we're allowed to do this, so we're gonna do everything
What?
just the most.
Every exposition scene will take place in a strip club.
Yeah, like,
I feel like round 1 was very much they wanted to wean out any of the audience who wasn't up for that. Like, and I think that was some of it is like we want to get through a couple issues where if you don't want to see the first page, I mean.
okay, this was, and I pitched this before, but we can vote on whether we want to do this. I wanted to see if you guys are cool with the content, if we could just read the first couple pages of the very first of the Marvel Max comics, Alias number
I
1.
don't know.
Matt's not okay with it.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that's.
Oh, and also, please submit your topics before we do this. Now is the perfect time to start submitting your topics for our 5-minute topic.
For a 5-minute topic.
At the end of the
Also, want to
episode.
remind everybody that at the end of the episode,
We'll be doing.
we're going to have
giveaway.
a raffle for a brand new game called You've Got Problems.
We'll
it is-
tell them.
What's that?
We'll tell them.
I know, but I'm excited to tell them now.
Yeah, good, okay.
It's from the creator of Super Fight and Red Flags, and maybe I helped write it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Really?
I actually, it's not a maybe. I did. I helped write some of
I
it.
was like, you're really on the
Or
fence
he
on this
didn't,
one.
and he's stealing credit right
You
now here
sleep
on the internet.
writing
Update
again?
the
I thought we had finally gotten you the proper medication.
No, I refuse to take the proper medication if it takes me away from writing. No, we'll be giving that out at the end of the episode. We are giving it at the
Yes.
or we're doing a raffle.
We are giving it out at the end of the episode.
Giving it out at the end of the
They will
episode.
just have to be active in chat to enter to
There
win.
will be
Okay.
a keyword
Sorry.
with an active in the whole thing.
Yeah, we do have a keyword.
So,
It's not there yet, so
'Kay.
don't. Yeah.
so if we can set, how do you want to do this? This is
How do we want to do this?
Do you have it?
I can't live
So
my life
unfortunately,
anymore.
we all brought the second half of the series in our paper copies.
But I do
Oh,
have
not
a
the
digital
first one?
copy.
I assume that's because Alias Volume 1s just go on walkabout. I don't know if
They
you
do,
found this
right?
to be true. But
Yeah, they disappear.
Most of my hard
They're under
copies of
people's
my books
beds.
that I own, I own because I lend to people at this point. Like everything I keep is now digital.
But will that display if we?
Oh yeah, I think so. So I apologize if you have sensitive ears.
This is a content warning for the next few minutes.
Here, and I can set this up like this. Look.
Ooh, fancy.
Oh, you need to readjust? I can move actually, I'm happy to move this a little bit too, if this makes life a little easier. Okay, that way we can read, because there's a lot of dialogue on 2 of these pages.
Yes.
So if you're a fan of Jessica, like literally, this is a Marvel comic. These are the people who put out the stuff with the Comic Code Authority that has been like really super clean forever.
This was 10 years before the code stopped being a thing.
Right.
Turn it this way.
Chief is giving us directions.
There?
I'm narrating this for the audience at home because I know that
I'll
they're
do him,
fascinated
you do her.
by
Are
this.
you up for that?
Sure.
All right. You get more of the writing, and I apologize for that.
Give me another one.
Chief is still adjusting. It's
So-
okay, everybody. We're still on the air.
So there's
So this is written by Brian Michael Bendis, drawn by Michael Gaydos, and the covers you would have seen on here were the aforementioned David Mack.
truly, and I love and bless David Mack because he did some art for us as well. But he is just a master. Like, and this is some of his best stuff.
Yes.
I really feel like he really went all out for these beautiful Alias covers,
Looking
Oh, I have one
like
right
he
here.
should. Yeah.
which eventually will show up when we.
Well, yeah, we're still
Thanks,
adjusting.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
I talked to the cast about planning to do this, but I don't think I warned the crew. I'm considerate.
They should know that we're here to
That we
ruin
might do
everything.
anything at
That
any
we're here to
time?
ruin everything. It's kind of our job.
Every day.
I think the problem is that we only have like 5 cameras and we need like 20.
I know.
Yeah.
We need to have this in bullet.
someday-
GoPros on
someday
everyone's-
I have
Please
a-
note, nope, they
They
don't.
didn't. We really didn't. But All right.
All
Here we
right.
go.
Yeah.
We're gonna try this.
So this is, what year is this? 2003?
This is not even 2003. This is like 2001.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Oh
This
my
was like
goodness.
1 year. Like he started Daredevil, and then immediately, like Daredevil and Ultimate Spider-Man happened kind of at the same time. Daredevil, then Ultimate Spider-Man, then Alias. Like everything happened so fast that it's ridiculous.
All right.
All right.
Page 1, panel 1.
Fuck. This is. Fuck. God fucking damn it.
Hands down, the single worst part of my gig. Sitting quietly through their emotional roller coaster. I told you when you hired me, these things rarely end well.
Fuck.
And, of course, knowing that at the end of it, you have to actually be heartless enough to ask them for money. You want a moment alone?
What does this mean? I mean, what the fuck does this mean?
Well, I can't say for sure, but she's probably a mutant, or...
Fuck! I thought she was just fucking around on me, you know, but this is just disgusting.
What?
Why didn't she tell me? How can a person marry another person and live a life like us and not say something?
We live in complicated times. It's not an easy thing to admit, I guess.
I'm her fucking husband.
Yeah.
Well, I bet you had a good time.
Excuse me.
Snooping around our lives. Was that fun? Did you have a couple of laughs?
I don't really know what you...
Real great way to make a living you got here.
You hired me. You came to me.
Fucking bitches, all of you.
Yeah. Huh. You're right. I can't imagine why your wife would have a hard time communicating with you.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
I know you're having a bad day, pal, but don't come in here and shit on my desk. You got me?
Fucked up my life, you bitches!
Smash! And then there's the matter of your bill.
Which is literally how they start the Netflix series.
And the cops come in, and instead of being sympathetic, they kind of give her the, like, suspicious runaround on the, like, huh, you used to run around in a costume, huh? So, like, I almost cried when I watched the beginning of the show, and that scene just happens.
Wow.
So
It happens very well.
Except
Like
they can't say mutants because rights.
And it's one of the things that like I come from a family where we talked about book to film adaptation a lot. It was we have a long-standing run of that medium specifically, and comic books. It's one of those things where I don't want a comic book story to be translated to the screen. I want a character. I want them to take that character and drop them in something new. I don't want to know where everything is going necessarily.
Oh, I'm torn on that one.
And well, I mean, like, I think if you tell the story and ignore the character, you kind of get Watchmen, which is such a clean adaptation of a whole bunch of ideas. I mean, obviously they did that whole third act cleanup, which is a whole other thing. But like, whereas I feel like especially like the Alias story is like somebody figuring out how can we make this character who lives really vibrantly on page, how can we make her live vibrantly on film, and understanding that there's a transmutation that needs to happen.
That has to.
That it's-
Because I think people fall into the trap moving from one visual medium to another visual medium of just like, we'll just shoot the panels. No, Mr. Rodriguez, no! But when they do it from a novel to a visual medium, they do that step. Like, just, you have to change it. You know, it's like, well, people aren't going to sit there for 7 days. Like, it's like we got to do it in 2 hours.
It's especially tricky with someone like Bendis giving you this dialogue that you just want to read. Even the homunculus is fun to read. Like he's he's stuttering over his own words, and it's so, and like there's depth to what's happening. It's so great.
The twists and turns that the conversation takes, the way that the drama lands in the pivot of what they're talking about and when, like, it's a thing that Bendis is exceptionally good at. And it's part of the, like, he's so well established that you can sort of joke about his style now, about, like, big dinner party scenes. But the thing is that he is a person capable of giving you 12 characters having conversations that illuminate all of them and that have their own internal momentum. And that's extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah, and it's even more difficult to move that from a comic page where you can compress that conversation around the dinner table with all those bubbles. Like, you can read word bubbles at your own leisure.
Yeah.
If people actually have to speak that dialogue, I'm just standing here watching people talk. Oh, God. You know, it's a completely different experience, and it has to be treated like a different experience.
So he's developing basically what I like to refer to as Marvel noir. Is we're getting Daredevil's nervous breakdown, which is also leading to Daredevil interacting a lot with Luke Cage and Spider-Man. And Jessica Jones. He hires Jessica Jones to be a bodyguard for a while. He hires.
I mean,
Murdoch
like,
does,
like
yeah.
you
Yeah.
essentially, like, he sort of gives birth to like this newer Defenders universe, like.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll get there in 2004 when
when
he
he-
creates New Avengers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like Black Widow was showing up, and like he's got this great little cast of like low level power characters.
But at the same time,
Kingpin.
he's slowly moving out into
it's
the
just-
greater Marvel world.
like- and like-
oh, it's just Hell's Kitchens. But every once in a while, someone, you know.
Well,
And
like,
that's a thing that
Carol
Jessica
Danvers
Jones-
is like the big kick there.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, his Carol.
His Carol.
It's interesting because like I
reminds me of
now
my grandmother.
what?
His Carol Danvers reminds me of my grandmother so much. She was so classy and bitchy at this. I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
In the course of his run with Jessica Jones, he gives her a friendship with Carol Danvers, which is one of
Like
those
they're
sort
like
of
best friends,
a
right?
very like an adult dysfunctional female friendship.
Yes.
Which is sort of amazing, and you see the inspiration from that in her relationship with Hellcat in the TV show. You don't know that's Hellcat.
Trish Walker.
With Trish Walker.
Trish Chat.
Trish
Patsy
Chat.
Walker, aka Hellcat.
I love everything they did with Patsy Walker in that show,
Yeah.
man.
And it was one of the things that really concerned me when they were adapting it. Is I was like, well, what are they going to do? They can't have Carol. And then they answered my concerns
And they're
really
like,
brilliantly
Brilliant.
with
Wow,
an
and like-
even stronger relationship. Like,
yeah, porting over that dynamic, but not being slave to what's on the page.
yeah.
And in a brilliant way. And so while this is bubbling, I'm going to move us over. Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man movie is coming out, and they thought, although whether or not that really happened is a little debatable, that suddenly there were going to be a bunch of kids coming in to read Spider-Man, and they were going to be confused at decades worth of continuity. So they had this other project happening, which was the idea of creating Spider-Man comics that started at issue 1 that were modernized and more easily digested for the young readers of the early 2000s. And that was Ultimate Spider-Man.
So we've talked before on our show about the whole Ultimate line and how the Ultimate line was meant to sort of update the Marvel universe and like the sort of like comic book continuity by giving it a brand new one, sort of updating it into a new world with like origins that are more or less the same, but maybe a little bit more palatable to a modern audience.
With a little less radiation.
a little less radiation.
It does everything exactly as much as you want it to, and not when you don't. That's
Yeah.
how radiation works.
Yeah, so you had like Ultimate Fantastic Four, Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimates, which were the Avengers but called the Ultimates, and then you had Ultimate Spider-Man.
And Bendis decided to write 2 of those books. He took Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Did he start with the Fantastic?
I believe
I thought Hickman started.
No, Hickman.
Miller was in there at some point. Y'all know I don't know my Ultimates. This is my big
Really?
weak spot. I missed it.
Ultimate
because
Fantastic
at the
Four,
time,
1
I
through
was like,
6.
Was that
Weird
Bendis?
computer covers some
Oh,
other
shit.
Marvel. I have a Marvel universe. I don't
First
need
six.
another
Oh.
one. So
Just
I
the
missed
start.
You were
the
being
book.
old.
Yeah.
You were busy being old school.
No,
I was
but,
a real like.
I'm very much
whoop.
the same. Like I've read Ultimates too. I've read a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man, but
Ultimate
like I haven't
Spider-Man,
read
I have
any.
all of them hardcover if
But
you ever want to
it's
borrow.
why I was able from the outside to be like, I turned around at some point and people were like,
so funny.
while you weren't paying attention, these guys have just set the standard for long form, consistent team storytelling, and it's
Right.
Ultimate Spider-Man, and it changed the face
It's the
of
same
everything.
writer and the same artist forever. I mean,
Right.
not since Claremont did anyone just stay on.
They beat the record.
Yeah.
They-
Stay out a owned property, like not a creator-owned property. Right.
Yeah.
That's so weird that you didn't let you, because
I was
for
probably
me,
the target
for
market.
me as like old school, old comic book reader, I was so excited because I have admittedly hate continuity.
Really?
I think it's so
It can
much.
be
I
trippy,
get
yeah,
that.
but-
so
You
much
saw
of the time
through it as a
it
10-year-old.
cripples creativity. You know, it's like,
certainly
and
can.
the idea behind storytelling is to retell stories. You know, every time Homer told the story of Odysseus, he changed it up a little bit. Like he's a blind guy. He's not writing it down. He's spinning with it.
There's
Yeah.
like, how many different folios of Hamlet are there? That we've got like 6 different versions of
Yeah.
Hamlet. I know, like Americans don't like to admit that, but that's the thing that is. It's just
But it's so funny because, like, imagine it's like, that's not the same Hamlet I saw before. It has to be exactly the same. Like this whole slave to concept is
Literally
like,
my high school.
I saw Hamlet once, and it has to be exactly the same as it was when I was 12. Why? You know.
So you were in. You gave.
I was so in. I'm like, yes. Why should every writer who comes be tied to something that was stuck into continuity as a bad, product placement deal with Mattel in 1974?
I was not in until I read issue 1. I was not in. I was very skeptical.
Ultimates in general or Ultimate Spider-Man?
I wasn't there. All there was Ultimate Spider-Man. That was ground zero. And I picked up issue 1, and he didn't put on the costume. I was like,
What?
Right, he slowed it down.
wow.
Yeah.
And then I picked up issue 2, and I don't think he put on the costume. I'm like, this is not what I was expecting. They are building something here. And they're making the Green Goblin really interesting, and they're making Mary Jane really interesting. And then Gwen Stacy out of nowhere
man, Gwen Stacy,
hit me
yeah.
like a freight train, and I'm like, holy shit. What is this? And the great thing about Ultimate Spider-Man, and one of the reasons why I give it to a lot of my younger friends who are readers, who I'm like, here's a Spider-Man, is that it has a beginning, it runs for a really long time, and then it ends. Right. It's the tale of Peter Parker, top to bottom,
Which is crazy.
And then you get
And
Miles
well over
Morales.
Morales.
And you
100
get
issues.
Miles,
I think
which comes later.
125 or so.
and they
before
were putting them out.
And this all takes place over the writing takes place over a grand period of time, but the story itself is only a couple of years
yeah.
in Peter Parker's life,
Yeah,
right?
it's him. I mean, like, and I don't feel this is a spoiler. It's his. I mean, like, you go in with this. It is the life and death of Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Down to the and thanks to Miles, down to what his death ends up meaning, and how his death changes the world.
I really want to get there because this is a very interesting next
is.
chapter in the Bendis saga. But I have to ask, because this was a big question for me in trying to assemble this timeline for myself. I'm so glad it went down like it went down. But if you're Marvel, how do you end up being like, who's the guy for new Spider-Man? That guy with the crime and the bounty hunter.
I have no.
That's actually good.
I have no
point.
idea
think about what we just talked about.
Fucking goddammit turned to Spider-Man.
Think about it, because you've got Jinx leads you to Alias crime stuff. Well, crime stuff. Well, who's a gritty Daredevil? But they know Daredevil's in a costume, and he's flipping, and he's got powers, and there's
So
radar.
Bendis knows how to write this guy.
And
yeah.
Spider-Man shows up in those Daredevils, and
Yes.
he's
in the city.
He's a great Spider-Man that he's writing. I really like Bendis' Spider-Man. He's the right funny.
He's the right kind of funny, yeah.
And he starts to do some breakdowns of Spider-Man that I really like. He's one of the first people to point out that Spider-Man is a bully, which I know is not necessary, but like the notion of Spider-Man as a bully.
We've argued over this concept before of some of the sort of modern, and I'm curious, but go into it.
Is it the Shocker that's the running gag in Ultimate, if I recall?
I think so, yeah.
Where there's and I think it's the Shocker, who's one of my favorite. I've been turned on to the Shocker, but I've got a couple friends who love the Shocker. It's the most ridiculous costume. He is such a.
He's the guy in the quilt, right?
He's the guy wearing a quilt, and he's stupid.
Right.
And he's dumb. He's a dumb character. He's really so they open a bunch of Ultimate Spider-Man issues. Every time they start a new story arc, is just the first 2 pages are Spider-Man really. You just see Spider-Man trouncing Shocker. You don't even get to know what the Shocker was doing. It's just dumb, and it's just running into his fist, Roadrunner Coyote style.
Right.
And it becomes a running gag for 60 issues of just whoa, the Shocker got back out of, and the Shockers. And then somewhere along the line, we open a story arc with Peter Parker tied by his feet hanging, and the Shocker in a room with them. And who's just caught Spider-Man and is now screaming at him that you keep doing this to me and you keep hurting me and I want you to fucking apologize. And he's just I would have been gone out of this except you're always there and why are you doing this to me? And he's just this horrible and you make fun of me every time it happens. And he's genuinely broken and you're holy, this is why these criminals keep coming back, is because if he just would shut up for 5
Spider-Man just
seconds,
antagonizes
it's
them.
because like it was like the dude like the ringster with that. He like they knock down and then like get his wallet out and they're like, oh, your name is stupid. His name is Lawrence. Oh my God, that's so sad. Your parents are stupid. And they're like, holy cow. Oh my God. Like, I mean, like, and it's
At one
not-
point, does with great power mean like if you are smarter and faster, like essentially extending the metaphor to that? Like, what is your level of
and I
responsibility
don't
to
think
these
Spider-Man is wrong. I think it's a nervous tick, and I get it. And they cover that in the books that he talks because he's panicking, and it's a panic tick. But it's definitely like that unconscious. Was I being a bully? Like it's just that it walks that. And,
Interesting.
And there are versions of Spider-Man. Like there was one of the movies where like he really like one of.
Well, I think it was the Amazing Spider-Man.
It was the Amazing
yeah.
Spider-Man where he like I thought that they leaned too hard where he like got the mugger and he's like, funny to you? If he got really like thuggy and I'm like, ooh, that's a bad look. That got a little dark, but
Interesting.
But so Brian Michael Bendis reinvents Spider-Man with
know,
Mark
it was my
Bagley on
rant.
art, and it works.
it works forever.
It has one of my favorite issues with Spider-Man where he's like, he like admits everything to Mary Jane. I can't remember how it happens,
Yeah.
but like that entire issue, he never puts on the costume.
No.
He never leaves the room. It's like a bottle episode as an issue of a comic, and it's just him and MJ and her like realizing,
It's like in her bedroom and he's just like he
like-
lays it out.
I'm so sorry that this is the case. I've been lying to you. I've never wanted to do that, but I was trying to keep you safe. And then she's got all sorts of questions for him. And like they're coming to all these realizations about like, so wait, when you said this, you were actually, oh my God, like, it's such a good issue. And
It is amazing.
It's,
and
it's filled with so much heart.
She's such a well-written Mary Jane. I really like his Mary Jane. Like their whole like breakup when she starts dating the exchange student and like goes out and goes to like the party and like I don't remember like everything that goes down, but finally he's like, okay, this is obviously not working. Jesus Christ, what is so special about Peter Parker? And her response is everything. And you're like, oh. It's just heart snaps.
Right.
But yeah, that whole relationship that they play with him and Mary Jane, and then eventually Gwen Stacy coming into the mix and Gwen's relationship later with Miles is fascinating.
Well, and Gwen's relationship with Aunt May.
Oh my God, poor Gwen.
Like it's
Right.
oh,
right? Like,
poor
it's-
Gwen.
I how much should we say? Like, I mean,
So-
like everyone.
You'll
yeah.
get in there. You're gonna
But
get in
we
there.
have so much more to get to. So you're Marvel, and you took a chance and you gave this guy Spider-Man, and
Right.
it turns out it's working like
Right.
real well, and I
Really
guess he's
well.
pretty good at superheroes. So then you get to 2004-ish,
2004-ish is
Avengers?
no, before
and you
that
just
is
give him the
Secret War.
keys.
Oh, that's right. He does Secret War.
Secret
Is
War.
that before?
Secret War.
I
was,
feel like that was 2005. I think he was well into his like refashioning of the
Disassembled.
world by the time that happened.
Really?
I may be wrong.
Like Bendis, like the way like I haven't.
2004, February 2004.
So does
Okay.
that this predate Disassembled?
Which came
this is
first,
when- this is when-
Disassembled or Secret War?
Let me find out. Secret War happened at the same time as the Pulse. Avengers Disassembled was
Pulse is the
2004 as
Jessica
well.
Jones
Jessica
It all
Jones.
happened at the same time.
See, that's
my
what we
God.
keep looking at.
It
It's
all
like,
happened
well,
at
this is
once.
it. And it was like all October 2000, all February 2004.
Yeah.
Like,
So
when did this guy sleep?
So they kind of gave him the keys to the kingdom. In the 2004, they gave him the keys to the kingdom, and he started. And this were three things that happened all at once in here, which was the Pulse, Secret War, and
What was the
Disassembled.
Pulse?
So the Pulse was the newspaper series that replaced Alien.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was where
Got it.
Jessica Jones sort of keeps working at the Bugle or the
They
Pulse
moved
is it.
Jessica
Right.
over to be our view into the superheroes.
Got
They
it,
brought
got
her
it,
out,
yes.
which I don't necessarily know was like it
didn't
was
love
good
it.
for the time, but like yeah.
It
Yeah,
is,
I
and,
didn't
like,
love it. Yeah, in terms of Jessica Jones stories.
As a small caveat, it's so interesting because I heap endless praise on this book, but then I will turn around and criticize the sort of like somebody asked in the chat
Please, yeah,
actually.
that we're ignoring
Miss
after that.
Sunflower says, "Where does noir and grimdark begin?" And that's a
Oh.
question that we are fighting out like to this day in a bunch of comments. Like you commented on Identity Crisis earlier, and it is not one of my
I'll
favorite
say-
stories
Right.
because there are things where I'm like, I don't want that mixing with my superhero universe.
Right.
But I'm lauding the guy who literally said, let's have this mixed with the superhero universe.
Right.
And it is like,
But see, but there's a
but
difference.
he found this line really beautifully. Like, first of all, the Purple Man story is different in a subtle but very important way in the comics, in a way that's very dear to me because I think it was the right call. I love the call that they made in the show for the show,
But it wouldn't
and
have
I
worked in the
love
book.
that it was different in the comics. Like, I fiercely love both decisions, even though they
I
are
do too.
completely different.
How do we tell the audience about the Purple Man that you like for those of you who don't know Purple Man?
He's a deeper crazy, and he's he's well known enough in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel comic universe, that everyone knows that he is a frighteningly dangerous human being.
Yeah, so his power set is basically it's not that he makes you do what he wants you to. He can convince you at a deep core level that you want to do what he wants you to do.
Pheromonally, he does that.
He once in the books killed an entire restaurant full of people by telling them to stop making any noise, and they all stopped breathing and eventually suffocated to death. Like, he's like dark level.
It's a particularly insidious form of mind control, and as you might expect, if you start to apply adult concepts to these old school superhero things,
like sea-level villain.
Yeah.
He was a goof.
He was a goof until
to be fair, they're following in a lot of territory established over in the Vertigo books of like, let's look at the sort of adult consequences of some of the fantastical ideas that we have. But that was part of the reason those split off from DC in the first place.
And I like that they treat him as a threat, and I like that the Marvel universe takes him seriously.
Yeah.
And treats him as a real threat, and they really everybody understands that he can't exist in this world, that he is not appropriate to exist in this world, and anytime. He's under lockup a lot, and like, even the other villains are like, "You're staying in that. We don't want you out.
He's everybody's.
You're a problem.
Yeah.
You're everybody's problem."
He's terrifying, and he terrorized
And so the
Jessica Jones.
The spoiler version, tune out for this next couple of seconds, of the difference in, I didn't mean to totally derail us into this, but I find it fascinating because in the comics, as they introduce this, as they're exploring this territory sort of for the first time, and they're trying to be responsible about the fact that they are still connected to the Marvel Universe, these are the reasons I imagine that they did this. While they do not shy away from the idea that he would use his powers in irresponsible ways, they make the choice to make the form in which he related to Jessica Jones not include actual physical assault.
Right.
They make clear that it was still a massively abusive connection that they had, but they choose to make it a different form in the comics where he, his particular form of abuse was to create desires in her and not fulfill them. So that while he is, it's very interesting because he is still guilty of that assault with other people.
Yeah.
He's still guilty of that level of villainy, but they don't make her story about that in their very first outing of mature content. And it's
Which I thought was a smart choice. Sorry to cut you off.
And it ends with him literally shooting her off like a bullet to run straight into Thor's hammer. Like it's he puts her in a coma. It's really rough.
It's a very interesting story, and as if those of you who've watched the show know that they make a different choice in the show, but that show. Maybe I should just save this for a future episode where we talk deeply about the ethical choices in Jessica Jones.
It would have been too complicated to explain in a Netflix series of what went down.
He did, but he didn't.
That's one of those things that requires a page. Some things require a page to explain, and.
But also avoiding that territory in the comic meant that they could not end up accidentally creating a scenario where they were depicting and then glamorizing or capitalizing on that.
Which was, in my opinion, a big problem with Identity Crisis, which was my whole problem with Identity Crisis is that it was like a viral load into DC that grimdark. And for the question about the difference between grimdark and noir, and this is a big thing, is the essence of noir is all about a polarization. One of the tropes of noir film is that the last shot is in the sun. Is that noir takes place, like Sweet Smell of Success is one of the greatest noir films ever made. Sweet Smell of Success, if you've never seen it, it's depressing, it's beautifully written, it's got amazing pace dialogue. I think I quoted it last night on Talks, my cats in the bag, bags in the river. Like it's just such a, you know, it says, I'd like to take a bite out of you. You're a cookie full of arsenic. It's just dark. But the very last scene is the sun rising over the city for the first time in the entire film.
Wow.
The whole film takes place at night until the very end. The sun is that noir. A lot of noir is always about walking, or if you want something a little more sci-fi, what's the one with the giant city on the turtle? The city on the floating through. Dark City.
Dark City,
Which
yeah,
is,
I was like
which is
city,
sci-fi
city,
noir.
yeah.
Literally, it ends with the sun coming up and him on the beach. Like the whole notion of these noirs is that I'm out of the cave now.
Right.
It's the struggle out of the cave in noir.
Well, but it's also-
whereas grimdark is there is no mouth to the cave. This is a sealed room.
Well, yes.
I'm shoving you in a sealed room and you're never getting out.
Well, and it also seems like there's intention also, like intention of
Always.
like with grimdark, it's we want this to be dark and gritty and adult, and with noir, it's we want to tell this hard-boiled story about a person who's up against unbelievable odds and rises against
But
that
there's
in the
always,
end.
but like, and like, not always, but like very traditionally in these noir stories, somebody, it may not even be the main protagonist, but like he gets the kid out of the house. He like it's even in like something as dark as like Sin City. People get saved. You sacrifice yourself to save someone else because you're beyond redemption. But like that redemption always exists. There's always there's always a way to do the right thing.
Well, that's the thing. For me, in the noir universes or the noir films or whatever, it's the darkness. The story that we're seeing now takes place in a realm, but there is light outside of us.
And that
it's not the whole world. In the grim dark, it's like everything. It's as if everything were noir. Like the sun is never going to rise. We're all going to wear slouch hats. We're all going to have an ex lover come in and try to shoot us. All of us.
well, it's
And
like
anyone who thinks they're in the sun is kidding themselves.
Yeah, and Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage in these books exist in that noir world, but right like blocks away is Avengers Mansion.
Well, and sometimes they will look up and
see them like, oh look, it's Iron Man is the fucking sun in that. Like Tony having a perfectly reasonable good day for a drunk playboy.
Meanwhile, 2004.
Meanwhile,
I
2004.
derailed us massively.
Yeah, you
They
did.
give him the keys to the Marvel universe.
I loved it.
Right.
so Secret War or Disassembled?
Let's. I'll take Secret War if you guys take, or like I'll.
Man, I can
sum up Secret War
love
in 10.
do it. I love Disassembled and everything.
Okay, so
that
I'll
he
give you because
went with.
Disassembled is nuts.
So essentially, he starts an 8-year run on the Avengers books in 2000.
years?
I believe
The Avengers
it was.
and New Avengers, yeah.
Yeah.
So the first thing that his crime novel brain comes up with is this book called Secret War, where Nick Fury, not quite the Nick Fury you all know and love, but a Nick Fury,
One of the Nick Furies.
figures out why, like stumbles across the reason why a man in a $30 million Stiltman suit is robbing a bank for 200 grand. Which is one of those weird little things that we just ignore because it's a fucking comic
Well,
book.
that and how a 15-year-old boy can sew a suit.
Yeah, like they cover that too, weirdly. Is he figures out that a foreign country that a foreign country that supports Latveria, the Doctor Doom country, although currently not Doctor Doom,
Right.
Where's B. Dave Walters to come in
is
here and tell us that
funding
Latveria is amazing?
super suits for criminals
Ain't no
in
Latveria
the
never called
United
me a-
States as an act of terror. Like they are basically released. Like is that supervillains are a foreign agent giving a terrorist action on the United States, and the U.S. government, who's kind of pushing S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time, says leave it alone, just bury it. And Nick Fury, being Nick Fury, goes
do that.
and recruits a bunch of like slightly shady superheroes. Not all of them. He gets Spider-Man, he gets Wolverine, Daredevil, Black Widow.
Captain America, right?
No, not
I've
Captain
actually,
America.
I have never until this moment made this connection, but this does belong in the same discussion as Identity Crisis in certain ways that have never occurred to me till now. Like a set of people being like, yes, but what if they did cross that line? And
Right.
then, woo.
So
Right,
it's
right.
here. Actually, I can get the list right here because I have issue 1 right here. It's Luke Cage, Daredevil. Yeah, he's got a few of them.
I'm going to offer our disambiguation. Secret War,
Secret War.
singular,
Yeah.
is the name of this book. It is,
There's nobody
It's
in
beautifully
a
painted.
disco suit or of Jerry Curl.
yep, it is a reference to the title of the 80s storyline Phil is describing, Secret Wars.
And then Secret Wars 2.
And then the 2015 Secret Wars.
it's also
this
the-
happens in between
It's
those.
also the introduction of Quake.
Yeah, Daisy
That's right,
Johnson.
Daisy
It's the
Johnson,
very
yeah.
first introduction of Quake.
One of the things that I liked about that is they never explained where she got her powers. It was
not
just
so
like
much later.
she is a lady who can cause earthquakes.
Yeah,
there you
they,
go.
they got to it later.
They got to it later, but like I
she's-
just love that Bendis didn't feel the need to say.
Like,
"By the
editor's
way-"
note.
Yeah.
She's a mutant, by the way, and she got her powers accidentally when she killed her parents.
Like he didn't. He was just
Not
like, here
that
she
that's
is, and
actually
she
her
can do
origin,
that.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah, she was basically just Nick Fury's right-hand agent.
Yeah.
She was agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Because Bendis was like, you know what, this story needs more women.
Jessica,
Yep.
guys, this needs another Jessica Jones. You just need another hard-boiled superhero, and he, bless him, he built one. And so this little team of people goes in and basically illegally busts up this country and like actually finds like the situation that's causing this and destroys it, basically committing an act of war. And then he wipes
act of war.
And then he wipes the memory of everybody involved and puts them back where they came from.
And this is interesting because I don't love this story.
I don't love
for
the
that
story.
reason.
The memory wiping?
But some people do. Like,
Well, I mean-
because generally, if your big superhero story is here's the line they don't cross, and I'm going to write the story about how they do cross it, and then just expect everybody else to pick up my pieces. Like, it's not my favorite kind of story.
Well, see, I feel like they were lied to and they didn't know they were crossing a line. Like the people who went in didn't know.
Like Nick Fury kind of is the bad guy. in
Nick
this
Fury
book.
is the bad guy in this.
Like,
Nick Fury's
he's
the
very
one
much
who's
the bad
like,
guy.
We're going to do a thing to save America, and then like, okay, this was a little sketchy. Bye, kids. You don't ever have. And then like a year later, after this happened, Nick Cage.
Nick Cage.
Nick Cage. This is what happened.
I am the director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Cage gets stopped by one of the people involved in this on the street, and she hospitalizes him. He is put in the hospital from being attacked for something he doesn't remember doing.
Oh, he doesn't remember.
No, he got mind wiped. So he was like someone came up to him and
It's
says,
Luke. It happens to Luke.
It
right?
happens to Luke,
Yeah.
and like literally, it's like this is for what happened in Latveria.
And he's like, wait, what happened?
And
like,
then
I've never been to Latveria.
And then he's in a hospital where they're like, we don't know how to even treat him. We can't pierce his skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna die. And then Captain America figures out what happened and like basically calls the cops on.
Sorry, that's where I was
Fury.
thinking like Captain
Yeah,
America was
is
involved.
Captain America
Yeah,
comes in and
right.
and is basically
He was on the team.
this is you did this, you are the worst person on earth.
But now they're getting an onslaught from villains in Latverian.
There's a whole counterattack
yeah.
that happens, and it ends up with like they have to save all these heroes who don't remember what happened.
Hence Secret War, because
Secret
the
war.
war was a secret. And
And
now they're
From the
being-
people who
It
fought
is
it.
actually a good book.
And this creates a power vacuum in S.H.I.E.L.D. because Nick Fury is the big thing that happens in this book is other than like everyone the superheroes turn on Nick Fury and Nick Fury is ousted from S.H.I.E.L.D. and vanishes. So S.H.I.E.L.D. basically depowers on a fundamental level because they like the super spy is gone.
Right.
No one really knows who's
Is
in
this
charge.
when
When
Daisy?
did Maria Hill get there?
Yeah, that's the exact same. I was like, Daisy Johnson and Maria Hill come in around this.
Maria Hill is who comes in next, and Maria Hill is.
Thank you, Bendis.
Again, thank you, Bendis. So this is what then leads to Avengers Disassembled. All of this stuff starts happening.
Okay.
It's architecture.
Yeah,
Disassembled,
so
kids.
Avengers Disassembled, on a personal note, this and House of M got me back into reading comics after a small hiatus of like event fatigue and poverty.
Right.
I was like, man, there's so much
Those
going
forces
on.
combined,
I just
they're rough.
can't keep up, and I'm too poor to keep up. But then I read House of M and was like, whoa, this is the greatest comic event of all time. Where did this start?
Another Bendis,
And another
Yeah,
Bendis
that was
one.
him too.
So then I went back and read Avengers Disassembled because of that.
Okay.
And was like, all right, I'm back on board. Like Marvel across the board, let's go. So like
Bendis
Bendis
had
is
that
like,
effect on a lot of people.
he was a major player in like my modern comic reading history.
So what's Avengers Disassembled?
So Avengers Disassembled is based on the idea of what if the Avengers had not just a bad day, but a very, very, very bad day.
Very bad, no good, terrible, terrible.
Very,
terrible,
very,
terrible.
like the worst. Like here are a bunch of heroes who can do godlike things, but they're up against villains who can do godlike things. So what happens when they really win?
they roll ones over and
They
over.
Like
do.
the
Seven
Avengers
ones
just
in a row.
critical fail, critical fail,
Critical
critical fail, and the villains are over here like, what's up, D20, 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 D20.
Yeah, and it's less than a day. Like the whole thing happens in less than a day.
The whole thing happens
and
in less than a day, and it starts with like spoilers. If you haven't read this, but you want to read it, just blah blah. Scott Lang dies within the first 2 pages.
Who is Scott Lang?
Ant-Man. He's the second Ant-Man.
Second Ant-Man, the one we love from the movies.
The one, yeah, played by Paul Rudd.
Yes,
Paul
Paul
Rudd.
Rudd dies.
Your best friend. Sorry. But he, like, they're all just hanging around the mansion, having a great day. Like, nothing can go wrong. And like Hawkeye's being like a kind of a chauvinistic, like dirtbag, and the women are calling him out.
Before Fraction kind of rehabbed him.
Yeah.
Right,
Bless
right.
Fraction.
Bless Fraction for
like,
saving Hawkeye.
Saving Hawkeye.
But then like this character, he's kind of half android, half not, King of Hearts.
King of Hearts.
Shows up.
Jack of Hearts.
Jack of Hearts. Thank you, Jack of Hearts. And he's like, they thought he was dead. He was lost in space, and he comes back, and Scott, like, they're all like, okay, what's going on? And Scott Lang goes out to be like,
You cool, dude?
hey, buddy, what's going on? And he's like, I'm sorry. Boom,
explodes,
blows up.
kills him.
Like kills Ant-Man, Scott Lang. Everyone freaks out. They all go running out. Vision comes back and lets out all of these Ultron robots. It's just like that's
Minutes later.
That's,
Right.
Like minutes later, as they're trying to like they're looking at the skeletal remains of the decimated Scott Lang sticking out of the rubble. They're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" Vision shows up and they're like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on here, man?" And then he spits out all the Ultron bots, and they all just they decimate people. In the meantime, Tony Stark is
Giving a speech at the UN?
Secretary
Speech
of
to the UN.
Defense for the United States government, and in his Iron Man armor, I believe, is giving a speech to the UN. Sees the foreign minister for Latveria and goes off on him. "You have no right to be here. What are you fucking doing here? You're a dick. Get out."
He gets drunk.
He gets drunk.
He
Even though
seems
he
to
didn't-
be drunk, even though he
says
does
he
not know
feels-
how he arrived at that
He
state.
he suddenly becomes drunk, even though he didn't drink anything. He suddenly becomes drunk.
He's suddenly drunk. All of it, inexplicably, hasn't touched anything. Half the Avengers believe that he did. Half the Avengers think that he backslid. And he's like, "No, I didn't. Yes, I was drunk, but I didn't drink. I don't know what happened." And he's one of the only ones who thinks this entire thing has somehow been pre-planned and orchestrated in some capacity.
I think She-Hulk loses
Well,
it too,
then
right?
She-Hulk has a panic attack, hulks
That's right.
out,
That's right.
and tears Vision in half.
Oh, that's right.
She
oh my God, I
literally
forgot about that.
murders
For
Vision.
people who complain about Grimdark, we're all really fond of this awful, awful.
Well, I mean, it was a lot to take in, but it led to, but again, it led to so much good.
Yeah.
It was, and it was Hawkeye who was like, we kind of had this coming. We have these amazing wins all the time. We were gonna roll a 1 eventually.
Yeah.
And then poor Hawkeye. Well,
And then, yeah.
So essentially, the Avengers get taken apart.
Yeah.
A bunch of everybody has their worst
Literally
day ever. A bunch of
disassembled.
people quit. A bunch of people are off the table.
there are no
and
Avengers anymore.
Yeah.
Somebody picks up the pieces. A couple of different groups pick
Well,
up the
should we
pieces.
say how Disassembled ends? Because that leads directly into House of M. It's important.
Well, another Avenger. This we should hold. Another Avenger is kind of responsible for it, and it's really bad, but they'll get into it.
Yeah, so there's another Avenger that
Yeah, that's too much.
has to be taken care of in House of M, but that's the best part of House of M.
Yes.
It's an alternate universe because of this one character. Don't want to spoil anything. Just go read Disassembled and then immediately read House of M. I love
And
those.
House
So
of
this set off
This
basically
cascade.
15 years now of what we're coming. So
coming to the end of the Bendis age.
and that was the thing that we responded to.
Secret War, the final Secret War, in my opinion, was the end of the
Hickman's
Bendis age.
Hickman's, Secret Wars 2015.
Was the
That
end
would
of the Bendis
that's
age.
20
Secret
years
War to
of,
Secret War.
of
Well,
Bendis
it means that you're
continuity.
conveniently leaving out Civil War 2, which you may or may not have chosen to do on purpose.
I'm doing that on purpose, but yes,
It was part of the reason that
Civil War his?
Civil War
the
2,
second
yeah.
one is. The first one isn't.
Yeah, the first one was
First one's
Mark
Mark
Miller.
Miller. He was writing books
James.
during that time. But so this is part of why, this 8 years on the Avengers, remaking them the primary center of the Marvel Universe at a time where the Avengers have gone in and out of prominence, but there have been big chunks of history where the X-Men were the big deal and the Avengers were kind of struggling to keep up, sort of in terms of popularity and relevance. And one of the big successful putting them back in the center stage runs is kicked off with Bendis coming in, putting together a new team, the new Avengers, doing crazy things like putting Spider-Man and Wolverine on the team,
Right.
which
Yeah.
had not been a thing.
and
but
of course because Jessica Drew,
And-
Jessica Drew.
his girl Jessica Drew, and Luke Cage suddenly, and
Right.
Doctor Strange,
Oh,
and
man.
a bunch of
And
what we now reckon what
good
are
Iron
now
Fist.
the Defenders.
Sorry, good Iron Fist.
Good Iron Fist.
But it's funny because I remember when the new Avengers came out and looking at the times okay, you're going to take all the popular characters and make them the Avengers.
Which was kind of the original concept, but hadn't really been done since the 60s.
Right.
Of make
Right.
it the all-star team-up team. And a lot of people were
Exactly.
like, this is cheap nonsense putting Wolverine on the Avengers.
yeah.
Right.
But
He's already on every other
Batman's
team.
in the Justice League. Shut up.
yeah,
Well, and do you remember how the new Avengers started with a prison breakout?
it did.
Yep.
Costume or no costume? Costume. Electro, do you want this done with costume or no costume? It's up to you. Costume. Electro putting on. And it's a prison break and
It
Daredevil.
was Avengers Breakout, right?
Yeah, and Daredevil is the only guy
I
who
didn't
was
have
there
Volume
who.
1 at home, so I brought 2. Sorry.
Yeah, Daredevil was the only character who decided not to join the team because he's like, I've got too much shit going on.
Yeah.
And it was
Which now
really...
reads as like a weird in-joke to Bendis being like, thank you for getting me the Avengers, you may continue into your universe.
Yeah.
And it was like the Breakout was a great story. It was a lot of fun. It was fun watching these characters interact with each other. And then the Century, which is a whole...
Oh, man.
That's Paul Jenkins. We'll get into that.
get into
but essentially, what you set off here is years of the good side of event comics. Is what a lot of people will remember from these years.
Yeah.
Because they legitimately made people excited. They made them come into stores or get back into reading. And we're reaching the point now where, you know, we're starting to explore the diminishing returns of giant event comics that take over everything.
There's some fatigue.
Can I one quick thing? I believe that it was Bendis who wrote one of my favorite Doctor Strange stories, and that was with the last arc on New Avengers, where
Was it the Hulk?
With Dr. Voodoo?
Dr. Voodoo. So this is post World War Hulk, when Doctor Strange has had his hands crushed by the Hulk after summoning Dormammu, like the dark power of Dormammu.
Yeah.
He's like, I did this incorrectly. I used dark magic. I shouldn't be Sorcerer Supreme. And Hulk is like, smash hands. And he's like, oh, God. He relinquishes.
Not again!
Not again! So he relinquishes his title. You get Brother Voodoo becoming Dr. Voodoo, the Sorcerer Supreme. But then...
I love
that.
Dr. Voodoo.
Does he have to apply for that?
Yeah. It's a
Doctorate in
long
Voodoo?
application
Dr.
process.
Brother the Voodoo.
Well, I have my
Some
temporary
peer review.
Adventure Brother. Dr. Brother the Voodoo.
Dr. Brother the
Dr.
Voodoo.
Brother the Voodoo. By the way, I'd like to point out that we have donuts, and I don't know why, but there they are.
They
They look
happened.
delicious. Thank you, Liz and Selena.
Thank you.
Are we
for-
giving those away?
Yeah, we're going to be giving those away to a
Will
happy
be-
fan,
No, we have
including
to- we actually
ours.
have to come. Well, we've got a little bit of time before our 15-minute mark.
I know, I'm
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
trying to race
There's
us
so much.
forward, but there's so much.
he gave me one of my favorite Doctor Strange moments, and it literally made me cry with Doctor Strange.
Is there any Doctor Strange moment that doesn't make you cry,
I
Matt?
mean, fair.
Yeah.
Fair, but that was one of my favorite cries.
Okay.
Aw, you're like, this one tastes Bendis.
Yeah, that was one of my
mean,
favorite weeps.
We didn't even
Strange
get into
weeps.
Riri Williams, who's
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God,
I
we haven't
love
even
it.
talked about Miles yet.
Miles and Riri is literally on our chalkboard right now.
Yeah.
As Ironheart, the somehow
New
snarkier Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
somehow we
Younger,
figured out a way to make a
snarkier.
snarkier, somehow even more superior Iron Man to the previous one.
So
She's great.
It takes a
And
13-year-old
Miles.
girl to like top Tony Stark with the I know what I'm doing, everybody shut up, I've got this.
So he's the only person in history to reinvent Spider-Man twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
Successfully
great way to
both
say it.
times,
Way to put
against
that.
great skepticism both times.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember the amount of I'm not sure about this that was floating out there.
Really?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
Heimdall.
So
Her
who's
origin's
Miles Morales?
amazing. Oh, well,
Wait, we're
Miles.
doing
Let's start with
Miles?
Miles. Let's
I
start with
mean,
Miles.
he's earlier.
He is earlier.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the fact that he did it, that he even tried to do it, you know, and against, you know, because this was pretty much
2011-ish?
before. Well, I guess diversity was sort of a buzzword, but it wasn't the thrust that it is now, you know. And he didn't have to do it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
But, like-
Sometimes writers get ideas and they're like, here's a thing I think would be cool, and that's the reason that they do a story. I know that's crazy.
If I recall, he had some quote. I know I'm going to misquote it, but like he put out this idea, this thing at one point where he's like, I had just gotten to the point where I had nothing left to say about Peter Parker, but I had a lot to say about Spider-Man, and I realized that I had to like that there was like avenues unexplored that I could explore, but I had to do it with another character.
Have you know the thing that was going on in Marvel earlier this year, the whole legacy
Yeah, Marvel.
thing that they were doing,
Legacy.
Marvel Legacy, is it still going on?
Still going.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking about Generations. I'm sorry,
Generations,
Generations.
okay. This summer
I've
there
been-
were a bunch of standalone stories, one-shots called Generations,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
united different characters who'd had the same mantle at different times. They sort of like, it was actually really fun because a lot of it was people being like, I'm not sure how I landed in the past, but I'll have this adventure with Wolverine.
Yeah.
So Laura and Wolverine just go on an adventure, and it's
And it's
nice and it's
great.
emotional, and they don't really bother explaining why it happened. 'cause
Why or
that's not
how.
the
Interesting.
point.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
just like, here
Bendis-
you are, deal with what's in front of you.
Bendis did one for Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and all that with Peter Parker,
Peter
Miles
and Miles.
Morales. Miles Morales ends up in Peter Parker's
that one. Yes,
right as
yes,
he's
yes.
starting college. Miles Morales just poofs in, runs into Peter Parker, doesn't know why. They chase each other for a bit throughout the story. And then at the end, they get to this point of, because it's just one issue, at the end, it's Miles Morales trying to figure out why he's here. He's like, there's got to be a purpose that I'm here. and he finally gets out of Peter Parker what happened that day, and it's that super duper iconic issue where he was underwater and he was like having like Dr. Octopus like dropped everything on his head, and he's like having to like push against it and fight against his will, and he's like, I just had a really like Peter Parker's like, I had a rough. Oh, the donuts are back.
Yeah,
Great. Peter Parker's like, I've had a really bad day. I think my Aunt May might be dying. I haven't got the test results back. It's just a really bad day. And then Miles Morales is like, as Peter Parker goes to sleep, he's like, I was sent to see how human you are. Because you've only ever been a legacy to me. You've only ever been Spider-Man to me, and an adult Spider-Man. I never saw the sacrifices and the pain. I only saw the results of all your hard work. And now I'm where you were. I am now where you used to be. Okay. And it's like, it's such a rewarding issue. It is so good.
And I'll say Miles and Riri are so fresh, and like Riri has like really done it for me. I like even heard that first little comment in that first Iron Man issue, and some 13-year-old built a suit that they downloaded of mine that they downloaded off the internet. Oh God, I'm gonna kill them. And I'm like, that's a fun. I bet that's gonna become a supervillain. And like, nope, that's not a supervillain.
Nope.
Oh, it's something better.
So we've only got a few minutes left.
Yeah, we got to do the giveaway.
And we've got a really super awesome giveaway.
Yep.
We should do the giveaway.
Let's do the giveaway.
And I've also got to, but like, yeah, there's so little of Riri and Miles that you can go out and read it all.
Yeah.
Super fast. Like,
Well,
it's
we've
not
had
hard.
like 6 years of Miles now. That's the cool thing. He was so awesome. They broke their own, like they were shutting an entire universe down, but they couldn't let him go.
'Cause it's
so
such
they saved him.
No, because he
Too pure.
nailed the character.
And he's Spider-Man, but a different Spider-Man. Like, it's still Spider-Man, but he somehow manages to have the Spider-Man snark without being a bully.
Yeah.
Because he makes it all about him, which I really like. It's like, I'm not into this, man. Well, okay, we're doing that. Oh, I don't want to.
We got to do this. We got to do
This
this.
is cool. This is cool, dude. This is not my day.
All right. So we've got a few minutes left. We've still got our 5-minute topic to do, which I imagine we're looking into. But first, you've got problems. So this is a tremendously fun game. I can say that because I helped write it. So it's called You've Got Problems. It's from Jack Dyer Studios. It's the same guy who made Super Fight and Red Flags, both of which we've had on our show before, or not on our show, but on our channel, Geek and Sundry channel. Yeah, it's a really fun game. It's out. I think it just came out last week or within the last couple weeks. And you can go buy it now, and you should. But we're going to be giving out this entire copy, like this game, and these two, and we're going to do a raffle.
What?
It's just a giveaway. Be
just a
active
giveaway.
in chat and use the keyword problems.
Please only use it
Problems.
once.
Only use it once. Only enter once. We'll be choosing the winner after the show. Or are we announcing the
No,
winner?
we'll have it in a couple minutes.
We'll have it in a couple minutes?
It may untag you if you do it twice, so just do it once.
Yeah, just do it once. But yeah, we're going to be giving that away. Along with this, we're also going to.
I think we're all going to pick some of our card party cards and each sign a card party card.
Yeah.
And include that.
yay.
You want to pick a
You
card
wanna-
party?
you- yeah.
We have lots of cards. So, I'm just
So
gonna
you
leave it
want
up
to
here
win
for
this
us,
game because now not only are you getting this, but you're getting some fun little cards from us.
So if you
Aki,
feel like,
thank you for helping manage chat. Sorry, we got real excited. And
I
didn't
know,
give
and we're
people the
like,
word.
and this is such a deep dive because like there's so much that he's responsible for, and again, it's very there's some. It's hard not to talk about Bendis.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got really excited.
We got super excited.
I'm curious. What's your overall take on Bendis? Are you excited to see this move happen? Are you scared? Are you?
No, I'm very excited.
Okay.
Just because he has consistently found new ways to do interesting things, and he never seems to be changing stuff up just to change it. It always serves a story. It always serves the character. And I'm very curious to see how he does that with these DC legacy characters.
Yeah.
You know?
Same.
I've got a theory. The question.
Oh,
But the
yeah.
Renee Montoya question,
The
right?
Renee Montoya question.
Of course.
Hard-boiled
That-
female detective.
Exactly. Hilarious.
Like that is such a legacy character that is up his alley. The
Yeah,
question
right,
is such
right.
a great
Did
character.
you notice though he tweeted a picture of his research and it's like a ton of Wonder Woman. I mean, it's a bunch of
Wait,
everything.
he did? I didn't see any.
He was
that's
like
fun.
research week 2, and it's just a huge stack of DC trades. There's 3 volumes of Manhunter in there. I mean, it's probably because he's buddies with Mark Andreyko, but Manhunter is an amazing female character.
Mark Andreyko has also been on our show.
Friend of the show. Also
Yeah, he's a great guy.
co-writer of Torso, which is an amazing book that we didn't even.
Oh my God.
Book that we didn't even cover, which is a true crime book about one of the first American serial killers being hunted by Elliot Ness in Chicago. It's amazing.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I've never read it.
I used to do it as a readable double
And
feature
it's
with From
Bendis
Hell.
art.
Oh, Jesus.
It's beautiful,
I've got to get
and
into
it's
this.
it's on Comixology
Do we? So how do we have our?
with Mark Andreyko.
I think they'll let us know when we have a
they'll let us know.
winner.
Yeah, Torso's a huge. If you're a true crime fan, Torso is an amazing read. It's a political thriller. It's serial killers. It's like noir 7. It's 7, but like with like historical 7. It's great.
You know what I'm gonna do?
Pick a card.
I'm gonna hand out a hologram.
They're hard to sign, man. How are you gonna sign that?
In the back.
Gotta sign the front.
What? I don't want to sign the front and ruin the hologram.
Okay, I'm signing.
What
Okay.
fan doesn't want a hologram?
Do we have time to run our 5-minute topic, and then you guys will tell us who won?
I was just gonna come over there and tell you this.
All right.
All right.
What's our 5-minute
Because I
topic?
believe,
Head of the game, Amy.
sort of, with 12 minutes to go, we have every week, Phil, I don't know if we actually warned you, but every week on the show, we like to do a 5-minute topic, which is where we let chat throw something at us, all figure out our answers as quickly as we can while the timer counts down, and then thank them for occasionally torturing us with questions that still haunt you.
Hello, darkness, my. Okay, sorry. All right.
Today's question for our 5-minute topic on the Wednesday Club comes from amazing username Mogo Don't Socialize.
Oh my God.
I love it.
Mogo don't socialize. Okay.
Okay, and our winning topic today is think of your favorite superhero. You are now their nemesis. What are your powers and how do you defeat them?
Specifically to antagonize Matt.
This may be a targeted Matt Key attack.
Oh, it's so targeted at me.
You, man.
I have a character who can defeat Doctor
You're the
Strange.
one you love. Yes.
You can't kill his favorite character.
No, you have to kill your favorite
Okay,
character.
fine. I gotta think about this. All
Who's
right.
who wants to
Pretend my
start?
favorite character is Matt's, just so I can kill it.
Okay. I have a good one.
Okay.
And we're ready to go. Oh, we're going.
Yeah, we're at 4:30 on the clock.
I'm a big Shazam and Black Adam fan. I love the Shazam family.
Awesome.
And
That's easy to
I always there's a thing that exists in certain forms, especially like Rosicrucianism, called the Quiplothic theory.
Of course
and I
you know
wanted to
this.
make a basically demonic Shazam, where instead of 7 gods, it's 7 devils.
Ooh.
Who
What's
grant
Shazam
them
backwards?
Mizash. But like have them just say Quiploth, like something wonderful, and then they summon these powers of darkness, and they are powered by the darker realms. The kings of the darker realms have this champion that corrupts a youth that goes in and it fights Shazam, and that would be like that's my perfect Shazam villain that I would create is like this. And they've touched on a version of that with the Granny Box version of Mary Marvel of the fourth. But like I think that you could actually turn that into like a power set and even do a corrupted demonic force, a lot like Black Adam is the corrupted god force. You could have like a bit of a demon powered character who's also sometimes helping out because like we're human. But like I love
Sort of
the
like
idea.
the Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider.
Yes.
Where it's like, I don't know where my power comes from, but I know what I want to do
weird.
with it. Like,
But I love the idea that there's actually like on a certain like a Luciferian Shazam really rocks my world. That would be my one.
all right.
Sorry. I think I have. What's that?
It's evil hair.
Yeah, it's evil hair. Okay. Doctor Strange. I know how. So he's my favorite character. Here's how you
all
beat. Thank you. You cannot. So there have been plenty of people who've tried to beat him. You can't beat him with magic. That's just you cannot. You cannot beat him with magic. What you have to do. You have to be way more insidious. You have to find a way to needle. So I would have baseline telepathic abilities to hide my intentions from him. Then I would needle my way into the Sanctum Sanctorum and murder every single one of his allies.
It's a little dark, man.
No, but that's how you beat him. That's
Grimdark,
legitimately the only way you can beat Doctor Strange is to take out all of his allies and find ways to make him believe he did it. Because if you can make him believe that his magic killed the people that he loves,
That's pretty good. Okay.
That's the only way you beat him. You have to eat away at his core of who he is.
Super spy.
Interesting.
I'm
this.
gonna take this in yet more grimdark directions. In honor of today's episode being Bendis, I like to change my favorite character answer day to day. But you know, today it's gonna be Jessica Jones because it occurred to me that like a supervillain who could prey on her weaknesses in the same way. It'd be interesting to have sort of the anti-Purple Man. If he can make you want things, the character who makes you stop wanting anything. Essentially, like the Dementors of the Marvel Universe, like because there's always that temptation to give up. Because she's strong, she can accomplish what she wants, but she's most vulnerable to her own, like, the not caring would be the way that you could shut her down. And that would be the worst, nobody do it. Okay.
That's solid.
My favorite character is Batman, and I just thought about, like, well, how would you defeat Batman? Well, obviously you can't out-strategize him. I would outspend him. I would be an evil multi-billionaire who is a sociopath and doesn't care about other people at all. Hard to imagine.
What?
And use all of my money and become also be a reality star. So I'm very, very popular. And I have minions, fans, people who do what I want to do, what I say. So they're going around with their cameras like, everybody go out, find the bat. So they're always watching him, so he can't function in secret. And at the same time, I'm using all my money to buy up all of the raw materials that he would need for his bat stuff.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
The supply chain.
This is like the best Lex Luthor anti-Bat story I've ever heard.
Right?
This is like such a good. I mean,
Oh,
like,
that's great.
And because and he won't kill. It's like I don't care.
No.
Just go after him.
you could like you could
force him.
completely
People are trying to throw
change it
themselves at Batman.
Entirely changing public opinion on him. Like it's already like
$60 million
rough,
to whoever kills Batman.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody, $60 million. Oh my God, that's so dark. Oh, that's so dark. Why is
You
everything-
win. This is
Mine
terrible. Why
wasn't
do you
that-
do this to
mine
us?
was demonic, but not dark.
2-1. Done.
done.
Logo don't socialize. You've brought out the terrifying possibilities in all of us.
You got to be a villain. You got to be a villain.
Yeah.
For A.B. Dallen, Matt Key, Taliesin Jaffe, and special guest Phil
Phil
LaMarr.
LaMarr.
Thank you for joining. That was our 5-minute topic. We do this every Wednesday on Twitch and Alpha over at Geek and Sundry. Come by anytime and join the Wednesday Club.
Yay!
We have our winner. Now that
Do we have a
we
winner?
do have a winner.
So again, I want to. I helped write this. I'm legitimately proud of it, and
you don't
my
get residuals.
no, I know I don't, but I'm very proud of it. And my lovely wife, Brittany, is the VP of the company. So yeah,
She brought a care package.
She brought a care package.
And not that we don't,
we all love our fans.
They could probably all read it through the back of the paper. So
Exactly.
What's it say?
But you can buy. It's on sale now. You can buy it at jackdire.com.
How do you spell that?
JACKDIRE. You put me on the spot, and I was like, I can spell one-syllable words. But yeah, jackdire.com. You can buy it now. You've also got Geeky Problems. That's all the nerd stuff, and you can get R-rated Dirty Problems.
Yeah.
And the Dirty Deck. But yeah. So do we have the winner?
And if your name is High Lord Baker,
Hi, Lord Baker.
you've already got problems.
You've already
Oh
got
man,
problems.
you've got so many problems.
Yay!
got all the
Thank
problems.
you so much for watching.
And High Lord's also gonna get some fun.
Yeah, and
cards that
I've
we're
pulled
gonna
a
sign.
shade the Changing Man card. So
Yep.
that's mine.
Amazing.
And yeah, you guys can. We're getting to the point where there's a little bit of wrap up.
Yeah, nice.
I so have like a really good idea for a Doctor Strange villain. I'll
I
tell
can't.
you
I
about it later.
need to hear it.
But I also want to shout out to there's so much to shout out for Bendis, but and we barely touched Torso, but I didn't actually mention my favorite Bendis book I really quickly want to do, which is, and it's not a book I necessarily recommend because it's a book like the movie Brazil, where you really got to be in the mood and you got to know walking into it that you're going to feel terrible. Like it's just going to make you upset on a fundamental level, and it's Scarlet. I love Scarlet so much, but it makes me angry, unhappy, and sad, but in a good way.
It's personal dystopia.
It is. It's a book that breaks my heart and makes me feel a lot, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And intense, and yeah, it's not a book for everybody. And if you're a fan of real, if you're a fan of feeling bad reading a book, if the idea of a writer making you feel bad about everything and breaking your heart over and over again excites you, I mean, it's a rough. I had a friend who had to leave a con because he had to go outside and like punch a wall and cry reading it. It was not good. During a signing, he had to leave a signing. He was like, I can't. Why did you hand this to me? Oh God.
Did he stop to read it during the signing?
Well, it was a thing. We had a thin moment. And he started reading. I'm like, how are you doing? He's like, I'll be back. And like had to like. He was like, it's so good. Oh God.
So we didn't even get into Siege or Secret Invasion or actually what House of M is.
He
or
writes
the way
too damn much.
Yeah.
He really does. Nor did we talk about why. Like, do we have theories on why he left Marvel to go to DC? Like, do we like we didn't get a chance to talk about that?
I leave that to other sites. Here we talk about books.
We are talking about books.
I will theorize. I theorize on Twitter.
So the big news was that after everything we just described, Brian Michael Bendis has signed an exclusive agreement with DC Comics, the company we haven't talked about today.
Direct competitor to Marvel.
Distinguished competition.
Distinguished competition.
Yeah.
Gentlemen on the other side of the house.
And many theorize that, as he put it, just change is good. He has now put his stamp on what we like. We were saying this last week that
what
sort
more
of
could he do?
that once he switches companies, we can basically put an endpoint on the hyphen of Bendis era for Marvel. Like now we
It's
know when
nuts.
it started and roughly when it's going to end. And we're all really excited to see like what's next.
What's next for him? I really do think it was like he's written everything. Like
He
there's
did an entire
no-
run on the X-Men. We didn't even talk
We
about.
didn't even talk about the X-Men. There's no time to talk about the X-Men. We've got
All new
literally
X-Men
less
is
than
great.
a minute left.
Right?
Oh my God.
All right, Phil, you so you've got your Indiegogo. What's it called again?
Goblins. So goblinsanimated.com. It will get you all the information.
Perfect.
It sounds wonderful. I actually need to go read that comic. I'm missing
you'll love
out.
it.
I'm looking forward to it, and I've got to go watch Thrashtopia now.
Yeah, that came out today.
Yeah, so I'm literally that's what I'm doing.
But you should also definitely stay tuned because I believe you are going to be joining our buds in a little bit here.
On the Ask Your Black Geek Friend.
If only
Oh,
you
I don't know
knew
how they
any
thought I
Black
would go
geeks.
in there.
I know.
and that's at 10 o'clock.
We won't have a show next week.
No, 'cause
for the holiday.
Turkeys.
Because
believe.
Thanksgiving, yeah.
Because Wednesday.
But we will see you back here in 2 weeks, and stay tuned for Ask Your Black Geek. Does anybody else have something they want to throw
I'm
out there?
so excited that we have a week to catch up on like what's
I
actually
know.
coming out now.
We didn't even tell them about the oral history of the
Oh
Avengers.
my God, the oral history of the Avengers! I swear, I'll get into that. I will get into that later. I will make that the
Okay.
whole thing.
Okay,
Thanks
we
for
got to wrap it
watching.
up.
Thank you guys so much.
Checkguard.com. Go buy the game.